Number 3 on the agenda. Amended preliminary and final major site plan variances. Couple of notes required. Meridia Toms River, Urban Renewal LLC. Mr. Shea, we're going to run this portion of the meeting. Just to continuity of the board, we're going to present your witnesses. We're going to seek input from our board professionals, questions from the board. Any member of the public that has a question for any of your witnesses, at the end, we're going to bring them up one by one. So, you can spend time. So, any member of the audience has a question, and then I'm going to open it up at the very end for public comment for the overall project. Okay. And then, if you feel we're running late, around 9:30, 10 o'clock more, and you need an ample amount of time to continue.
Yes, I think we'll be able to run through the application fairly expeditiously.
So I want to make sure that anybody that has questions or comments, that we would give them adequate time as well. Good evening.
Good evening. Absolutely. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, pleasure back to the board as always. As the board is probably aware, certainly professional staff is aware, what's before the board is for amended preliminary final site plan for Meridia Toms River 40 Urban Renewal LLC. As the board is probably more than likely aware, the project was previously approved by this board in January 2020, 2022 by way of a resolution that was adopted by the board, comprehensive resolution done by Mr. Toms after numerous hours of testimony and presentation by the various witnesses. The developers commenced resolution compliance shortly after that particular approval and the resolution that was adopted. And resolution compliance, as the board is probably aware, involves going to the various outside agencies of approval, Ocean County, the DOT if applicable, and certainly in this particular instance, CAFA, and the DEP. So it was a process with the DEP that took almost a year in order to get responses back to them because of the sensitive area that's in. It's obviously by water. There were issues relating to flood hazard areas and the like that had to be dealt with. After approximately a year, we were notified by the DEP CAFA that there was about a 2,500 square foot retail area that was on the floor on Water Street with the board reports. And as a result of changes in regulations and recommendations from the DEP, they required us to move that 2,500 square feet up either to the second floor, which kind of makes no sense at all, retail on a second story area, or the alternative, eliminate. So that commenced really some discussions with professional staff in Toms River. Also, at that point in time, there were also discussions about the possibility and whether or not we would be interested in lowering the height of the structure. For a variety of different reasons, there were some people that loved it, some people didn't like it. We wanted to have something that the township enjoyed and liked. So the discussions commenced with respect to whether or not it would be really in the developer's concept of lowering the height of the stories from 10 stories to what's now 6 stories. 2 stories for parking, 4 stories for apartments. We had some concerns about that, very frankly, because we were then sitting on a CAFR permit with the structure that was previously there. So after discussions with CAFR, they had no particular issues with respect to us lowering it. Their main concern was making sure that airflow was appropriately given through the buildings themselves. That was done with respect to the new concept. And those discussions then resulted in new plans being generated, submitted to your professional staff and also to the town council and the professionals, which has resulted in an agreement that was entered into between the council, the developer, and amending the prior redevelopment agreement. And just as the board is aware, I included those agreements, although it's not technically before the board. I included those agreements just to make sure everybody's aware of it, that they were entered into between the parties, setting new timelines for the construction of the facility, because obviously the timelines change, and certain other recommendations. recommendations. It's interesting to note that with respect to the project that's before the board, we have actually, as I noted, lowered the stories of the building by 4 stories. So it's actually 40 feet, approximately 40 feet less than what the prior structure was, 112 feet. The architects and the engineers will get into it. Now it's approximately 70 feet, give or take a few feet. The number of units has been also lowered. There's 285 units approved, 281 right now. What's important to note, however, the structure itself, as you can see, in the exhibit that's been marked as A6, the architecturals, and Mr. Burrell will explain it in more detail. The main entity and the main issues relating to the original project, that is the promenade area, the boardwalk area, the area open to the public, all of the seating spaces, the amphitheater that hopefully will service many functions and residents over the course of the years, has not changed at all. So the actual footprint of the original building stays exactly the same. The podium stays exactly in the same position. The only thing that changes is really the architectural features and is a reduction of the height. And just a manner in which the design was sort of contemplated after the lowering of the building. So essentially all of the improvements that were contemplated, which is approximately $5.5 million in public improvements that the members of the public would benefit and would hopefully be able to enjoy. In addition to about 15,000 square feet of retail, will now be open to the public. The public will be able to utilize the same, it's just not earmarked for the renters of the apartment. And those items we felt were extremely important, certainly important to the township fathers, as well as the outside agency approvals as well. So that hasn't changed. The criteria that the application has been submitted under, in other words, the ordinances that guide what the board has got to review, have not changed as well. So we satisfy, the applications before you, even though it's amended, satisfies every criteria of the ordinance except for 2 de minimis variances that were previously approved by the board. One variance, Mr. Briscoe and the planner will discuss, have actually been eliminated. So the actual variances associated with this plan are significantly lower and de minimis in nature. The representations made by the operation, Mr. Reiner testified last time. You can take a look at the resolution. I incorporated in our package the resolution of approval that was adopted by the board on January 20th of 2022. That's A1. All the representations contained in Mr. Reiner's statements are accurate. The security will be the same. The manner in which the operation remains is the same. The manner in which the operations within the parking facility has not changed. So the only thing physically that has changed is just really the architectural rendering and just how the units have been dispersed within the complex. It's the same amount of affordable units, which is again a benefit to the town. That's part of our affordable housing requirements. We could have lowered it, or frankly, the units that we lost, but they remain the same. There's an additional 1-bedroom units that have been included, which I think are beneficial because that's the type of tenant that my client is earmarked. He's looking for a generational type of user in this particular building. They have right now probably close to 5,000 units across the state that are occupied, and at a rental rate in the high 90s. At the last meeting, there was a discussion from the hospital. Everyone knows what's happening in the hospital. There's education facilities going on there. Hopefully, we get some of those nurses and doctors that are right up the block from the hospital to be able to have a place to live. I think everyone recognizes that in Toms River, there's a shortage of apartments. We have apartments here, but they're filled. And these apartments will, I think, service a need, not only for the community, but also significantly improve downtown. This is one of the centerpieces that has been working on for years to finally get built and hopefully act as a jumping point for other developers to come down here, put money into downtown Toms River, whether it be retail or other uses, so that the downtown is not a ghost town on Sunday. And we all know on a Sunday, you can blow a cannon through Washington Street, and there's nobody around. So what we're lacking is people, and this will generate the type of people who are going to be able to benefit our current businesses and the downtown area. The rental units themselves, a variety of different prices, as Mr. Rhino had indicated last time. Just to state for the record, the studio apartments are approximately $1,250. It goes up to about $1,900 for the 3-bedroom, and the affordable units are about $1,100, and $25 for the 3-bedroom. Affordable about $1,300. So again, those unit prices are governed by the state code as well. As I indicated before, the application comports with almost every requirement within the ordinance except for the 2 design waivers, the 1 design waiver as well as the 2 variances as we testified to. Other than that, it complies with all of the requirements within the town zone relating to the ordinance requirements that are facilitated concerned before. I have 4 witnesses tonight, and hopefully they'll go fairly rapidly. I have Mr. Christian Pereira, who's our architect, who testified previously. Mr. Doug Briscoe, who's our engineer, who also testified before the board previously. Matt Seckler, who's our traffic engineer, and also Matt Flynn, who's our planner, who will wrap things up. And before we get started, just to make things a little bit easier for the board, we pre-walked certain exhibits I'd like to read into the record. I provided each of the board members with packages. A1 is a resolution of approval, as I commented on before, from January 19, 2022. A2 is the amendment agreement that was signed by the developer and dated 12/21/22 and amended on 7/12/2023. That empowers the applicant to come before the board for this application tonight. A3 is the site rendering prepared by Briscoe. A4 is the aerial exhibit prepared by Mr. Briscoe, dated 10/18/23. A5 is the architectural plans prepared by CPA Architecture, dated 7/20/23. A6 is the rendering prepared by CPA, dated 10/18/2023. And A7 are the planning exhibits that Mr. Flynn will testify to, dated 10/18/2023. And at this point, I'd like to bring Mr. Briscoe.
Just one question, which is the one variance you're not, see, I have the minimum setbacks from the street line, and the minimum setback, and the minimum building coverage.
Yeah, that's probably best to have it.
It's going to have to be, you can do that? Thank you, Mr.
Yeah.
Do you swear the testimony that will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Thank you.
State your name and spell your last name for the record, please.
Sure. My name is Cristiano Pereira, Pereira, for the current city architecture.
Chris, you testified before this board.
Yes, I have.
Matter of fact, you testified at the last hearing.
Yes, I have.
You were accepted as an expert in field of architecture.
I was.
Accept his qualifications for you, sir.
Thank you, Lily. So, Mr. Shea does such a great job. You can say, I almost feel like I have much else to talk about. I will refer to the architectural drawings just so I can walk you through the many items that were mentioned by Mr. Shea that apply to the architecture. Starting with the rendering, very easy to see, right? We had 2 towers that were 8 stories over. There was 2 levels of podium. We call them the two parking levels. And as you can see here on these revised rendering, what we have now is the same, roughly the same amount of units as mentioned by Mr. Shea. We had a reduction in units from 285 to 281. But you know, the major modification we have here is the 2 towers that were reduced from 8 stories above those podiums to 4 stories. What is a little harder to see on the floor plans that we'll go through, but easy to see on the rendering, I want to start with that, is where we have those 2 towers, and you can see these 2 volumes that I have on this rendering here with the solar panels on top of those. Those are the areas that were reduced, right at the towers from 8 stories to 4 stories. What you see in infill, where we have the roof deck on the front area here, and then the other roofs, you see those are only 3 stories. So, we couldn't reduce the building and maintain roughly the same units if we didn't fill part of the podium that was here with additional units. But what we didn't do is we didn't bring everything down by only 4 stories. The majority of these spaces were brought down by 5 stories. So we have sections of the building, and I'll show you on the elevations, we have sections of the building that are 6 stories, and we have sections of the building that are only 5 stories. And I'll go through the plans, and I think they'll be, I wanted to start here on the 3-dimensional image and then go through the plans with you. But just to pick up on what Mr. Shea mentioned, we did have the reduction of units. The building height was modified from 112 feet to 67 feet, so it's a 45-foot reduction in height. The number of units, as we mentioned, was changed from 285 to 281 units, and as mentioned by Mr. Shea, what we didn't change was the number of affordable housing units. We had 43 before, 22 2-bedroom units, 21 3-bedroom units, and that remains the same. There has been no change on that. Also speaking briefly about the retail space, the modification that was requested by the DEP to remove the retail spaces on West Water Street and move them up to the 2nd floor affected the amount of square footage you could have. That was addressed on the redevelopment agreement, and the requirement was for it to provide at least 14,000 square feet of retail. What you have in front of you here on this proposal, we're showing 40,728 square feet. So we exceed that minimum requirement. I think it's also important for us to mention that, as mentioned by Mr. Shea, we spent a lot of time with the DEP. We also met with the utility companies, we met with JCT&L, water company. And there were some small modifications that were done to the lower 2 floors of this building to address requirements from the DEP and JCT&L, where they wanted their transformers and secondary meter rooms and disconnects, so on and so forth. So, although we have done some minor modifications to the ground floor, I think it's important to say that what we have in front of you is what's being approved by DEP. And a big effort on making this modification was for us to come here tonight and say, we already have our approvals for the lower floors. That is not changing, those approvals are there already. What we're modifying is those 4 stories above the podium. And I think that has a tremendous value because it was a lot of time and a lot of work with all the different agencies. So I'm going to go quickly through the plans because there's the changes that I mentioned are very easy to follow. I will skip my T100, which is essentially just talking about the number of units, and I'll talk about that when I get to the residential floor. Yes.
Just also just confirm.
Sure.
The representation I made about promenade.
Yes.
Staying in place. Not changing.
Exactly, extremely important. No, that has not changed. The promenade and all of the amenities that we're providing, all of that work that we're doing with that boardwalk and the amphitheater and the exterior parking spaces that we have, as well as all the parking that's inside the building that is shared with the public, and I'll get you those numbers now, none of that has changed. So we have the same exact amenities for the public that were presented during the last meeting. I'm going to skip right into my A101 sheet, which is the lower level parking. And within here, there's not much I need to tell you other than the entrances to the garages, the way we had previously presented them, remain the same. The DEP had comments, and a number of comments regarding the retail space. As we previously discussed, those are located along West Water Street. We do have 2 retail spaces now on the 2nd floor along West Water Street. And the other modifications that we requested was for us to reduce the size of the lobbies. They do not want anyone occupying the ground floor if there is a flood. So all of the lobby amenity spaces that we had, that has been reduced. But the number of parking spaces, the storage units we have, the bicycle parking, by the way, increased by 5 spaces. We were able to pick up some additional bike spaces. But all of the entrances, access points to the building, they all remain the same as we previously presented. Also important to mention, the Fire Bureau had a number of comments to these plans and the previous plans, and required us to incorporate a number of access controls to the building and controls to gates that separate the public parking to the residential parking. He also had some comments regarding the sprinkler service because of the EV charging spaces. And we have reviewed this matter and we can comply and have already revised the drawings. We just haven't filed back with him, but we can accommodate all of the changes that he recommended on his review matter. Flipping over to our A102 sheet, that's the second level parking. Again, very minor modifications other than we do have now these two retail spaces on the second floor along West Water Street. The shared parking that we had previously remains the same. We still have the access from Hertford, we still have the access from West Water Street around that, the parking you see on the engine in the back here. We have access from West Water Street there, some exterior parking, and then access into the parking inside the building. That all remains the same. The parking spaces that are provided for the public, which are 56 inside the building and 22 outside, for a total of 78, has not changed. So just to put on the record, our parking was 411 total spaces. It remains the same. 389 of that was inside the building. 22 were outside. That also remains the same. The total residential parking assigned to residents was 333. That remains the same. And the shared parking, 78 spaces, also remains the same. Going to our A103 sheet. One of those microphones that Lady Gaga was on. A103 is our first residential level. The change you see here is, if you recall the prior approval plans, there were two towers sitting on top of this podium. As I mentioned, what we have now is we have the residential units distributed throughout the podium. Those units are organized around a number of courtyards. There are 3 courtyards along Variance Street. There's a larger courtyard that faces the waterfront. That larger courtyard is accessible through a interior tenant lounge space that provides interior amenities as well as access to the outside. And we also provided an open courtyard facing the water so that we have that through view for the residents of this level. Along with the 4 courtyards that you see here, or 5 actually, count the little one, we also have a very large roof terrace on the top floor facing the water between the 2 sections of the structure that are 4 stories high. And when we had all the square footage of that, as well as the courtyards that are on this transfer deck, right above the garage, we have just about the same square footage that we had in the previous approval. So we had about 17,900 square feet before. We now have 17,300 square feet of amenity spaces exterior to with access to the residents of the building. In terms of units, Mr. Shea mentioned the unit breakdown, and we had to modify not only the unit quantity but also the breakdown of the units. So I'm going to give you just briefly from the 285. Now we have 281. We had 44 studios. Now we have 53. So we have 9 extra studios than we had before. The 1 bedrooms are increased from 141 to 145. So there's 4 additional ones there. The 2 bedrooms, though, were increased from 56 to 38. So we have a negative 18 2 bedrooms from the prior to now. And 3 bedrooms, we had 1 that was not affordable. Now we have 2 that are not affordable. And then, of course, we have the affordable units, as I mentioned, 22 2 bedrooms, 21 3 bedrooms. I'd like to just move through our plan. So A104 is the fourth and fifth story. So this is it's essentially the floor I presented you before. We just don't have access to the courtyards from those floors, as the courtyards are on the lower floor. And then this is our sixth story, where you can now clearly see where we have those two towers, right? Those two sections of the building are 4 stories, as I showed you before. And then the spaces in between are the roofs of the floor below. And the roof of the floor below that faces the water, that's where we're providing that exterior roof deck that we intend to have as accessible to the building residents. Our A106 sheet references the roof plan. So what you see here is the two sections of the building that are 4 stories. That's where we intend to provide all of the photovoltaic panels, the solar panels. So that's where you see on the rendering there, indicated in blue. The parapet of the building, much like the prior approval, will be high enough to hide all of the photovoltaic panels and any mechanical equipment that we have there. I know there was a question on the review letter, so just to address that. So going right through our A200, the elevation sheets, we have these two-dimensional colored elevations where you can see, and I wanted just to briefly touch on materials because that was part of the prior approvals. So our intent is to maintain the language that we have in the prior building, which we believe was well received. We intend to maintain the same. We have a lot of red brick being used in the lower sections of the building. We do have some cementitious boards in different tones, creating a lot of interest on the upper floors, as well as very large windows to be able to maximize the view sheds that we have at the waterfront and the surrounding neighborhoods. And we have a lot of metal details in the coping of the building, as well as some three-dimensional trim work. And that applies to our A2-101 sheet as well. On the elevations, you also see indication of signage. The signage, the change we have in the signage from the prior approvals, where because we moved the retail to the second floor along West Water Street in Hereford, we are very concerned about making those retail spaces visible, right? Like now you have a retail there, you don't have a storefront. People are not just walking by seeing what we have. So we thought it was important to add some additional signage. We only had them along West Water Street. We are now proposing some signage along Hereford there as well. And that's why you see an uptick on the number of signs that we are proposing. We don't necessarily object to, if the board finds it that you don't want as many signs, we don't have an objection going back to the same signage approvals that we have and maintaining the same exact amount. But just to give you the feedback why we increased the signage so that we can accommodate that, make those retail spaces more visible. Mr. Chair, I believe that's
Just get the
Sure.
the square footage of the retail and the primary section.
Sure.
Maybe the better question would be, has any square footage changed at all from the prior application?
Yes and no. So we had 60,500 square feet of retail space total for the building. And post feedback from the DP when we had to move that up, we did lose square footage, and we were roughly at around 40,960 square feet of retail space. This part of the modification to the building, we had one additional set of stairs that went through the retail space, so we lost another 300 square feet. But again, I think the redevelopment agreement was updated to reflect the 14,000 minimum, and we are above that. We're 14,720. So we're.
Has there been any discussions about proposed uses there? That was a restaurant, proposed, daycare, a gym. That's correct.
That's correct, and those are still open. We don't know who will rent the space. I think the idea is we created this beautiful promenade that has, ability to have outdoor seating, and, so we, and I know my client envisions this as a very, active uses that, adding a gym that's open to the building, but also to the neighborhood, but also a restaurant and coffee shop. So that's the intent. But,
And the amphitheater that was, again, positioned to the right of the, so that's still present, still occupies.
that's still present, still applies the same spaces.
There was one item in Mr. RVE's report, I think you can, paragraph E1, relates to testimony regarding the location of equipment on the roof.
Correct. Yeah, so I briefly mentioned so the upper roof is where we've located all of the equipment. The solar panels and any rooftop equipment will be hidden by the parapet. We have a very tall parapet just to make sure that we are hiding any mechanical equipment anything that's there. So we'll be able to address that. Yeah. Thank you.
Now, Mr. Couture.
Our professionals. Well, if you have any questions or concerns?
Just one question I just want clarification on, which I believe that there was testimony on this last time as well. So with regards to the amenities and the restrictions to the spaces, is there?
It'll be all, the amenities inside the building are going to be for the rental time.
So that includes the courtyard
That's correct.
and the rooftop
And the
terrace. Okay, so those won't be able to be leased for parties or events.
And that was again previously represented that stays the case. And just to be clear, that certainly doesn't include the retail at the bottom. We want the public to come there, and we want the public to enjoy the amenities.
That was all that I had.
Thank you, Mrs. Sullivan. Mr. Uday?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just also want a clarification. So approximately 4,000 square feet of retail space, that's what's going to be included in the project now?
14.
14,000, I'll take that back.
Yeah.
And what was the amount that was originally proposed, in the original proposal?
I have that written here. It was I believe it was 60,800. For them, I have it on the resume. 16,000.
There's 16,485
485
square feet
Yeah.
in the resolution. Just so that's clear, the approximate amount of square footage that was restricted by DEP was almost the same number as what we got there.
Okay. So that was a result of the DEP's comments.
That was a little exactly.
Which is really somewhat of a change we had discussed, because now they're restricting basically retail space at ground level on West Water Street because of the flood hazard regulations.
Okay. That was my only clarification I was receiving. Thank you.
That's what I want to say, Mr. Shea, was elimination of the retail on the ground level. It was a DEP, so.
It was a DEP, exactly.
And that's not exactly square foot per square foot, but that's the reduction in the
That's
retail
correct.
space. Thank you.
Board members?
Chairman, I have
No.
good evening. In regard to the retail space on West Water Street, how is that accessed?
Good question. We do have. The corner. Okay. So I don't know if you'll be able to see it from there, but corner West Water and Iron Street. We do have, and just, I guess I should have touched on this. The big intent of design of the building was to maintain what West Water Street feels like, which is all retail. So the 2 stories that we have of parking is very similar in height to the adjacent buildings that run along West Water Street. Even though we have parking behind here, we took a design approach where we're providing a lot of glazing and storefronts so as to mimic that the retail will be there. We will block those windows because we want cars in the night to shine lights through those back lanes. But the idea was to do that. So as we continue through the corner, we maintain access there. So there's an access to the retail from there with stairs. And we also maintain an access through the elevator in the main entrance along Iron Street for handicap access. So we have the two retailers that are on top. One is developed, as you see here, on the next sheet. You see, we have two retail spaces. One is about 3,000 square feet. The other one's about 2,200 square feet. One along West Quarter and one along Iron Street. So we do have this, corner entrance that's 2 stories tall with a beautiful stair, and that is the access to the retail. And the handicap access is done through the elevators in the rear here. And there's a corridor that connects both retail spaces.
Is there access from the parking garage to those retail spaces?
Yes.
The interior units, particularly on the 3rd and 4th floors, what are their views?
What are their views?
Yeah, right. So
Right.
like, where are the windows? What are their views? What are they? Because they seem quite.
Yeah, so it's an interior courtyard. So it's an interior courtyard, and Meridia has a number of buildings that have been configured this way. So you have, these courtyards are all 3 stories tall only. If you remember the rendering there, these sections of the building here, these are 3 stories. So you have plenty of access to air and light. So these units face the courtyard, and what we usually do with those is, well, we have an access to those, and we do a lot of paving, a lot of landscaping, we put trees and pots, and it looks like a great, if you go to Europe and you go to one of those small courtyards in New York City, and you go to a courtyard and you see that landscape there, that's what this is. It's a interior courtyard.
Okay, so that courtyard covers what levels that you would be seeing?
Yeah, so these courtyards cover the first 3 stories. Right, the building here is only 3 stories high. So the courtyard sits on top of the garage, that's our transfer back there, and then you have 3 stories above that.
So that would be 3 stories with units or?
With units on.
So
Right.
the 3rd, 4th, and 5th floor?
Yeah, so we have 2 levels of parking, and then on top of that parking, which is the transfer back, we have those 3 stories of residential. So that's floors 2, 3, 4, and then, that would be floors 3, 4, 5, and then these 2 sections of the building, there are 4 stories, would be floor 6.
So their views would be of the interior courtyard, which is covered up.
Then it's not covered on top. It's open to the sky. Yeah, so you get rain, you get air, you get light, you get sun.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not enclosed. Yeah.
Amended, you said LA business is going to be in there?
Oh, no, I said a fitness center. I don't know which.
Okay, now on the courtyard, are there children amenities in there? Like,
We haven't designed the courtyard yet. We have engaged a landscape architect. Usually, Meridia does have. It might not be outside of the courtyard. It's most likely going to be a space within the building that might have a children's space. Most likely not in the courtyard. But the courtyard will be essentially an open space with seating, some plantings, some trees, space kids could go and play. Yes. Vice Chair.
Sir, you spoke a little bit about the parking on the interior of the building. It's supposed to be shared for tenants of the building, and there's going to be a certain section only for public parking.
That's correct. Well, it's shared parking.
Yes. So, but the public is not going to have access to the portion that's for tenants only.
That's correct.
There's multiple entrances for the parking garage. Is there a specific entrance that public parking is going to have to use, and is that going to be clearly marked?
Good question, and we went through this extensively through through the other approval, and that has not changed. What we do have is the entrance from Herflicker. You would be able to enter and access this parking. You can't see it from there, but maybe in the plans you have, there's an area here that's shaded. This area that's shaded, if you enter from Herflicker, this is always open. You can drive your car up and you have access to all these parking spaces. If you live in the building though, and you're a resident and your parking space is in here, for instance, you would come to, there's a garage door here that will be accessed or open through a fob, and either a fob or something that's a sticker that will come in your car. And that gate would open and then you can access. If you don't live in the building, you wouldn't have access to that. So there's a gate here, and the same happens. There's another gate here and another gate here. So if you live in the building and you come in from West Water Street, you'd be able to go up the ramp. And if you live in the building, you come to a point and you have a gate, and then you have access to that. If you don't live in the building and you just parking here for the day or to go to the restaurant, you'll be able to access all this parking without any gates.
Okay, so West Water Street, Herflicker are the only two entrances where public parking can be accessible.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, great, thank you.
No problem.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, I just had a question. For the open areas for the public,
Yes.
the drainage, is that going to be interior or exterior?
Within the building, on the courtyards?
On the courtyard?
Yeah, so there will be roof drains to collect the water, and it will be interior to the building,
Going on the outside of the building or
Going.
on the inside?
going inside the building.
Mr. Chair,
I have a question for you.
Sure.
I noticed we took the pool.
Yes, we did.
Okay. And the idea is to attract professionals and things after the house is being built with the fairways and have a pool and have nice amenities. So why would we take an attractive amenity like that?
So, if you look at the rendering, I think part of what we struggle with to be able to reduce this 2 towers that were 8 stories into 4 stories and sectors that were 3 was, how do you distribute those units within the footprint that you have? And, complying with the CAFA guidelines and being able to fit the units, you can see we already lost some units in order to do that. We just didn't feel that we have enough space to provide a pool that will be, reasonable in size that, would be a functioning pool. And with that, we decided to, up the amenities with the roof deck and provide other spaces that are not, that's not a pool. I know my client operates many buildings without a pool, and he has no issues attracting, the type of, clientele that they want. So the decision was to eliminate the pool. We have a beautiful space for a gym, that faces the waterfront. I believe we intend on having kayaks and things in the building to allow people to use the water that's right there. And this entire space that we're improving in front of the building. So we felt that the building had enough amenities that we not necessarily needed a pool.
thank you. Can you just touch upon what efforts were made for the architecture to be consistent with the downtown architecture that's currently there?
Yeah, sure. Unfortunately, we don't have a rendering from the lower view as we had before. But if you remember the rendering, a lot of what we try to do along West Water Street, first, as I mentioned, the 2 levels of parking, they're very similar in height to the other buildings that are there. We looked at the rest of the downtown and the use of red brick and some cast stone materials and the storefronts along. So we wanted to continue that along West Water Street. The balance of the building, reference some of the other materials that you have in town. There's some stucco, so we're proposing these cementitious board panels which are cut with joint lines that similar to what you see on the stucco detail. And those are the materials that we wanted to bring in to the building.
Was another witness going to be speaking about lighting in the area? The lamppost and lighting?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Do you swear the testimony about to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. State your name and spell your last name for the record.
Douglas Briscoe, Grysko, Dynamic Engineering, Toms River, New Jersey.
Thank you.
So you've testified a few times before the board, is that correct?
Just a few.
Chairman, something you said, yeah, thanks. So you just give the board, again, an overview based upon my opening as well as Mr. Ferrera's description of the architectural rendering, Mr. Chairman.
Again, Mr. Shea and Mr. Ferrer both stated, I'm going to concentrate on the ground improvements or the public improvements along the waterfront. And it was basically said that nothing has changed. You know, we've worked through that DEP process, but the public waterfront, the boardwalk, the amphitheater, the outdoor patio areas, it's all there. Maybe some tweaks, but we have the sidewalk coming in from the intersection of Main Street and Water Street from Buddy Park, branching into the sidewalks, up to the patio, the boardwalk that runs along the waterfront, out to Herflicker. It's all the same. We have the amphitheater at the corner of West Water and Main Street, all the same. We have that parking area that's currently there where the old hotel used to be. That's all the same. We have all new sidewalk going in around the perimeter, connecting all the way around because Herflicker currently does not have sidewalk. Again, nothing's changed there. As far as along the waterfront goes, again, the deteriorated bulkhead, wooden bulkhead along that section, that's all going to be replaced with new vinyl bulkhead as approved by DEP. The waterfront or the open areas of the water's edge, that's going to be in front of the boardwalk. That's going to remain a vegetated area. We thought at one point the DEP was going to want some stone along the frontage. They want to keep it just the way it is out there right now. If you know it, it's all vegetated right to the edge. We're maintaining that, so that's going to be there. But again, you know, pointing out the patio areas, everything along that waterfront to bring in the public to those restaurants, et cetera, that will be on that second floor level has not changed. There was some discussion or a quick, we've had the opportunity and been in close contact with your professionals, specifically Mr. Hudak. The township has a grant, a DOT grant, to put new street lighting down Main Street. That's a DOT roadway. That's going to mimic basically the same fixture as what's on Washington, the decorative fixture. Now, previously, in the original application, we thought that using the fixture in Buddy Park was going to be a great idea to keep consistency. But in speaking with the professionals and the recommendation, we're bringing that same fixture that you are familiar with along Washington in front of the buildings here, that decorative fixture. We're bringing that downtown. We're going to have that all the way around the perimeter, West Water, coming down Irons and down Herflicker, as well as any internal lights are going to be that decorative fixture that everyone is accustomed to down Washington. In addition, the town has their roadway improvement project that's working very closely with the Jersey Turnpike, the county, and the township. Was recommended that our office and the engineers always stay in contact with that roadway improvement project. When we were first here, they were in very, very initial stages. They didn't have any kind of plans prepared. At this point, again, through my discussions with Mr. Hudak, I've been in close contact with the redevelopment engineers on those roadway improvements that are being prepared. They're still in draft form, but we're coordinating efforts so we can coincide with utilities and work that needs to be done along the frontages, whether it be new curbing, they're going to be raising their grade on some of the roadways to alleviate some of the flooding. So we're continuously in contact with them to make sure that our plans can coincide together and cohesively will come together when it comes time to construction. Just quickly, as far as, the parking areas and the driveways, Mr. Pereira touched on it. The outdoor parking is the same, 22 outside spaces. We have the driveway off of West Water Street, the driveway off of Iron Street into the parking garage, and then the other driveway off of First Liquor as well. Nothing's changed. It's exactly in the same place. We've also enhanced the landscaping around the perimeter, adding street trees along all the frontages as much as we could. We have 20 to 25 based upon the calculations. We would need up to 30. We'll continue to work with the professionals, but we do have some restrictions. We have driveways, we have site triangles. We can't put, things that would obstruct, like a tree in the site triangle or on the driveway. So we have 20 to 25, we need 30. We may still need a waiver there, but we'll work with the professionals. If we can get a few more trees, we certainly will. Or maybe we'll put them somewhere else, but it does require a total of 30 based on the linear footage. But we have enhanced landscaping all along the waterfront and all around on the Iron Street and Herb Flicker sides as well. Basically, again, consistent with the previous approval as well. I'm going to jump right to the variances being sought. There was some talk about, in the original application, we did have 4 variances. One of those has been eliminated because the minimum height requirement, we had a minimum height variance for the West Water Street frontage that was at 25 feet for those retail units, commercial units that were proposed. We've heard testimony regarding what we went through with DEP having to move those and the reworked architecture. Now that area along West Water Street is a higher height, so we don't have that minimum height variance anymore. The 3 other variances are similar to the original. They remain consistent. We have the minimum building setback of 15 feet being required. We have that's along the West Water Street frontage. There's a county dedication there, so it's reduced slightly because there's an easement along the frontage just to straighten out that right of way. But again, consistent with the original. Minimum building step backs. That's from the building step backs. We had 0 before because of the towers that we had. We now have we are providing, as the point out, we have a step back of the building along West Water Street because we have that now, but the others remain at 0. So again, it's consistent. And then the max building coverage, 50% required, 50.2 being proposed as far as the building goes, and then with overhangs and balconies, 51.9, consistent with the original release that was sought. There were 2 other design waivers as well. For number of wall signs, Mr. Pereira touched on it slightly. Again, we're remaining consistent. They're being moved around a bit, but it allows 1 per site frontage, where there will be multiple signs around the building. Again, consistent with the original approval as far as signs go. And then the percentage of signable area, 40% or not to exceed 60 square feet. There are 3 signs that are at 65 square feet, so 5 square feet over. We have 4 originals. We actually eliminated 1 from the original design paper, so we improved on that. We do have technical comments that we still need to work through and continue to work with your township professionals and the redevelopment engineers. As far as the report goes for the board professionals, any technical items of your board engineer, we'll continue to work with them and address those as compliance items. We have no issue with complying, and they'll just remain as ongoing conditions of approval.
But just to be clear, looking at the review comments, number 1 was the architectural issue, which Mr. Burke addressed. Number 2 is building comments, we have a problem.
Right.
And number 3 relates to the drainage. I think you hit that with respect to the cooperation with what's going on with the county.
Continue with the county with roadway improvements. We will address all of those to their satisfaction.
So we can represent to the board and the special staff that will satisfy conditions number 3A through R, is that correct?
Correct.
And moving on to lighting, again, what will that requirement?
Yes, that's adding the decorative lighting around. We'll continue to work at that and tweak as needed.
And relating to landscaping buffers, I think you've again touched on that, will satisfy the criteria and work with the board professionals to satisfy those items.
Yes.
Paragraph number 6 is traffic safety comments, and Mr. Secker will be addressing that, but I think they were also touched on your testimony, also Mr. Burr's testimony, that Mr. Secker will address that. As far as miscellaneous comments, 7A through E, we'll move forward with those items.
Correct.
As far as outside agency conditions of approval will satisfy the or so items contained.
And any that are applicable, we will get those as part of final compliance if we don't already have them.
And as far as outside agency approvals, we have some in hand already, and we'll, again, we're applicable, so we'll satisfy them.
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Hudak, any thoughts, concerns?
I don't have anything this time, thank you.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes, I do just have a couple of comments with regards to one of the waivers. When we went to the landscaping of and buffers 5C, regarding the zoning easement, I believe we're requesting a partial relief or
Maybe partial relief, if it is required, depending on where the street trees come, we will provide it. Because of the way that we have, the building up on the frontages, it may not be required in, all around the property. So actually, maybe a partial waiver will work with you if there's an area that's needed there. All utilities themselves are coming from the roads. There's no utilities within that. All the sidewalks, everything else is out in the public right of way.
And then with regards to the build ramp and the improvements to the roadway. So one of the things we had concerns about was with regards to the timing of everything and the construction of this building as it relates to improvements in the roads, limited access to the site, and the developers agreement as far as restricting COs with regards to the time. So we want to make sure that, the site is accessible even when the construction is being done on the improvements to the elevation of the road. So that was one of the concerns, and, it might be more of a matter of dealing with the township engineer and the township planner. It's just like some type of commitment with regards to the possibility that you may have some restrictions in issued COs because of the construction.
Yeah, as I indicated, we're already in contact with the redevelopment engineers and the county engineers on these plans that are being developed for the roadway improvements coming from the parkway all the way down from the bus terminal and all the way down West Water Street. So, we'll continue to do that. There's going to be a lot of careful coordination. We'll work with the township engineers. We already have that open dialogue going. And yes, there'll be some construction coordination that we'll have to continue to work with so the projects can coincide in a good fashion.
And then, that one of the questions that had come up at the last meeting, and I'm not sure if this is something that is under your jurisdiction or not, is there any dredging fee, was there any dredging permits being applied for, or was it determined that it was that part of it?
No, I don't believe so. No application.
With regards to the parking, if you could just discuss with regards to the parking and the access to the parking lot, with regards as it relates to just flooding, if there, how.
We're going to have Mr. Seckler address the
Okay, all right, that is all I have.
Board members?
Actually, the question might be more directed to Mr. Hudak. Do we have a time frame on the start of the improvements related to the build grant?
We have a current schedule of next year to start the project, or I shouldn't say, because the engineers handling the project will be next year, and complete by 2025.
Is the township or the county taking that on?
The township is in coordination with the county.
Okay, thank you.
Members? I have a question. I don't know if it's the best answer now or maybe by another witness. Concerning stormwater management. So my concern, this morning I was at a Dutchess County Mayor's meeting and they had a representative from the DOT do a presentation, presentation. And it was the concerns with high nitrogen levels in the water, pollution in the water, and we're in the back of the Toms River, which, so my concern is what stormwater management safeguards would be in place with runoff water.
This was, it dates back to the original approval, nothing has changed as far as that. The DEP has reviewed the stormwater management, and I think the biggest point here to remember is pretty much the entire existing property is a parking lot that is contains of, vehicular surfaces, pavement areas where cars drive. By putting the building on it, we're eliminating all of that area where you would have motor vehicles traveling, et cetera. So that rain runoff now that comes down, instead of hitting the ground, picking up some of those items and running off across the pavement, it's hitting the roof areas. We're collecting it through roof drains, some discussion on that. It's considered clean runoff in DEPs. Then it's already clean, no further treatment is needed, and it's released into the storm system, which ultimately does go into the river. Any other pieces with the county, there's systems there that currently service the roadways and surrounding areas where they treat the water and it all goes into that same spot at the end of the river where it discharges. We're working with them to keep that in place, and if additional measures are needed, we'll certainly provide it. But the biggest thing here is that the what we like to call total suspended solids is what you're kind of getting at. By putting the building on the site and covering it by building where we have clean runoff and that rain is not hitting the ground where the cars are, where there might be drippings or whatever from the cars. It's clean. So we're discharging it as it comes from natural environment out into the storm sewer, which ultimately does go into the end of the river.
And I think that's one of the more significant items that the DEP looked at, why it took so much.
Just to add to that, since we're talking about water, I think we are talking about having kayaks or canoes. Does he realize that half of the year, that's a mud hole, there's no water? And when we do get the high tide, you can't get under the bridge to get out to the bay? Do you understand that? I think to me, that's a fallacy. That's never going to happen.
I do, and we did have discussions. We understand that we have now in Hyde Park, we have a canoe or a kayak storage space that's now past the bridge because we get under it. We fully understand that, and we fully understand that section in front needs to be cleaned and dredged at some point, but that's not,
According to the DEP, it is not going to be dredged. When you start dredging that, you're going to be stirring up more contamination that's in the ground already. It's going to go out into the bay.
Right. So when I was mentioning before, it's just a space in the village where we store those things so that, people can walk down, have to walk and access, close to the
It would be a very nice thing to do, but unfortunately, it's not a developer, it's the state that probably be the biggest deterrent to that, unfortunately. But it's something that we can certainly continue discussions. If you recall, it took almost 2 or 3 years just to dredge out the area in front of the lobster shanty years ago. And that was a pushing the button with the state court to get those permits.
Can you just please clarify the two exhibits in front of us?
Oh, sorry.
The one, I guess it's,
Yeah, I'm sorry, I should have,
with
this
orange.
is, this is, exhibit, this is the two-dimensional site plan, it was marked in as exhibit A3 already. It's basically just a colorized version of the site plan that you have in your set. We've added the colors to try to distinguish the building with some, different tones that demonstrate different heights that are much more visible in the 3D version. It's hard to show that in a 2D version, but we tried to use different shading. And then we have the ground improvements, again, all the same as where it is as far as the boardwalk and everything else. But this was exhibit A3, again, a site plan rendering prepared by our office dated 10/18. And then I was referring also to Mr. Pereira's exhibit as A6, which we had marked before.
Okay, and the legend on A3, it talks about the orange as the proposed building, and then the lighter orange as proposed canopies, overheads.
Yes.
Sorry, tiny print. So is the entire roof of the building either a canopy, like is there any access to the ground in between those sections? Because
Well,
it
the
looks like
canopies-
it's an entire wall of either roof or canopy, is what I'm trying to clarify.
Yeah, the canopies are like just, on the lower level, there might be a walk-in area where you can get in from the outside, it's just covered by, you won't get wet. But, it's mainly, we have the building and that's around the perimeter. It's a little tough to see, but there are some, canopies around the perimeter of the building.
Because I'm just trying to clarify the courtyard underneath and if there's any sunlight coming down into that, that's just a little
I think Mr. Pereira indicated that these internal areas are exposed to the sky and rain and sun and et cetera.
I understand that, it's just the legend and A3 doesn't present that.
There's no canopies, these are not canopies in those areas, if that's what you're asking. That's actually the lower area.
That's the lower areas of the building.
The lighter orange are the lower areas of the building.
Okay, maybe next time use two different colors.
Yeah, understood.
Thank you.
It's difficult to depict in 2D stuff.
One more. So it's been talked at length that this area is very prone to flooding. Currently, the parking lot, do we know what grade that is at? And is there going to be any increase to the grade of the building when it's built?
Yes, I mean, again, that hasn't changed from the original approval. The floor of the parking deck is going to be at elevation 4 to 4.5. Okay, that's higher than what's out there. It's about 1.5 to 2. We had extensive conversations with the township engineer on the original application and some data that's being collected as to those normal, those typical storms that come through, winter storms or whatever, where that elevation comes up. And, we were told that it was around, elevation 3, 3.5. So it was recommended that we go up to 4, 4.5, and that's, just the parking garage. There's signs around the entire site. DEP requires you to, put those signs up, areas subject to flooding. Again, the township has the grant that they're working on raising some of the roadway grades. That'll help somewhat, that we experienced out here. But, it is being raised from what's out there right now.
Thank you.
Professionals? Anything else?
Nothing at this time.
Yes, thank you. This,
So, please swear the testimony that's the truth
Yes, I did.
So your name is by your last name.
My name is Matthew Seckler, that's S-E-C-K-L-E-R, with Stonefield Engineering Design, 92 Park Avenue, Rutherford, New Jersey.
This is
something you testified also a few times before, is that correct?
Yes, including the previous iteration of this project.
Correct. Thanks, Matt, if you could just give the board an overview again of the traffic report study that you did based upon the site, which is consistent with the last report, but if you go through that, also we'll address the questions.
Certainly, and going through what the theme of the night has been is in terms of what has changed from last time to this time, traffic probably has changed the least out of all the other disciplines. All that we've had in terms of traffic changes is we've reduced the number of units, reduced the amount of retail, again, both by minor amounts, would only result in our conclusions previously provided. We're going to get slightly better. We take out some units, take out some square footage, keep the parking the same, driveways the same, the traffic conclusions will be unchanged. I do want to remind the board, and this was part of the original testimony, is that this project is one of 7 developments that were already accounted for in the county project that will soon be the Township's project regarding the roadway improvements in the area. So as part of that study, the county and township identified 7 sites within this corridor that they basically put on top of the traffic counts that they had previously performed on these roadways. So they've already accounted for developments like this. In fact, they accounted for a larger development that was on this site as proposed by this developer. The site that was, the development that was accounted for in the overall traffic study included 399 units versus the 281 that we're proposing here. So again, the roadway improvements that are going to be put in place account for a more intense development that we are proposing as part of this application. In terms of parking, I mentioned we are still compliant with what is required per the redevelopment plan, and also improving the condition that we previously got our approval for because we reduced the number of units and the square footage. Access to parking is unchanged, and you heard that from the site engineer and architect where those access points are. In terms of parking garage, you've heard there are areas for public parking, there's areas for private parking for the residents of the building, and there are some spaces within the garage that are considered tandem spaces, where obviously if you are a 2-bedroom apartment, you have 2 cars, you'll be able to get 2 parking spaces back to back versus just a single space. Those obviously tandem spaces we give to a single tenant in the building. You're not going to be having to park behind the person who lives across the hall from you. You'll be parking behind either your roommate, spouse, or whoever you share your apartment with. So that is how the parking inside the garage will work. And again, you've heard that from the previous witness. The site still maintains the same areas in terms of loading, drop-off, DoorDash, Uber Eats, all those type of operations. They'll still have the same locations that they previously had been proposed in terms of the access points off of the various roadways. So again, from a traffic perspective, slightly better than you heard in the previous application, and this is less intense than what is already being accounted for in the roadway improvement project in the area.
Matt, there's a couple of comments in the RBE's report, specifically paragraph 6 on page 6. A, regarding testimony regarding the status of this report from Ocean County and JDOT. I know Mr. Briscoe touched on that.
Yeah, again, Ocean County is aware of this project. I believe they may have received these revised plans. If not, again, this is less intense than what we previously looked at. DOT, we are not making any changes or access points at any DOT jurisdiction roadways, so we don't require any permits specifically for them. We can provide you the truck turning templates for emergency vehicles, fire trucks, trash truck. Again, I think they were included in the previous version. And the access is unchanged, but we can provide that as well. And C relates to a potential waiver regarding curb returns, radii shall be not less than 15 feet for right turn maneuvers, right turn movements. We will make those revisions. We believe we can make them and not need a waiver, but to be safe, we may need a waiver. Again, it's just related to the radii of right turn areas within the garage, where again you have low volume, low traffic, low speeds, but we think we'll be able to meet that radii not required.
Mrs. Hall? Thoughts, concerns?
just, just to clarify, so you are requesting
I think we're gonna be able to satisfy it, but having not done the design, I think it may be safe to request it, just so that we don't have to come back here for a 15-foot radii waiver in the future. We believe we should meet the so we'll request it. But we're not gonna ignore them, we're not gonna ignore the comment, we're gonna do our best to accommodate.
And then one of the other comments I had was just if you could just touch on the elevations and access to the parking spaces and some of the concerns with the flooding and you know if there was any effort with the design to help kind of minimize and provide access points that may be at a higher elevation.
So I'm actually gonna probably push that to one of these two witnesses related to dry egress and ingress.
That's fine.
We refer to.
Referring to the architectural set, it was A5. So I think the first thing we try to do is to separate the two parking spaces, or two parking levels with access to different streets. We know the grade along West Water Street is higher than the grade around, definitely, certainly through higher than Herflicker. And the access point that we have on, higher than Irons. So Irons being the lowest at elevation 2, so as mentioned. And along West Water Street, so the grade here is much higher. It's almost like grade 7. So we're way up, at that point, way up, grade 7. And then on Herflicker, same thing as we're approaching the bridge there, the grade gets a lot higher here. It starts at grade 4 and then goes up. But I think the best thing that this project does is, if you know that there's a big storm coming, we do have the ability to let the tenants know that there's a storm coming that might be flooding, that they should move their cars. And we do, at that point, we could move a lot of the cars up to the upper level, or move the cars outside the garage. The two access points for the upper level, we felt was important not to have just an access through Herflicker or just through West Water Street, because that is just circulation-wise for the public, just the way the traffic flows now, and I know that's changing, but the way it flows now, but we thought it was important to provide access on both streets. So the tenants are mostly accessing through Irons on the lower floor, and again, that's the one that's successful for flooding, and if we know a big storm is coming, we can imagine we can let them know, hey, move the cars, it's possibly flooding.
That is all I have at this time.
Let's go to that. Thank you, Chairman. I don't have anything at this time. Board members? No.
Hi, good evening. Can you identify on the plan where the tandem parking is?
Certainly. So I'm looking actually at sheet A102, which was an A5, I believe. There are parking spaces along the side of the building. Again, it's interior to the building, but near Herflicker on that side, where the parking spaces are tandem, meaning that basically have a 18-foot space with another about 18-foot space in front.
And the tenants could enter on Iron Street and the rest could people enter.
So we just discussed that there's an access point on Water and an access point on Herflicker. I'm looking at, well, you can see the outline on 102. At the top corner of the page, you can see the arrows going up and down. That's showing the area towards the garage. And then same thing on the right-hand side of the sheet, you can see the access point on the right-hand side.
And how is it gated off so that no one parks in those cannons house other than,
Yep, so the spaces within the garage are assigned, so you will have space 62, and that may be the front and back with the tandem space, so that'll be assigned to you, you'll be the only person allowed to park in those spaces. The spaces in the share, those would be basically be unassigned spaces.
okay, but is there a gate or any type of way to,
Yep, so there's a gate, and on 102, and this is drawn actually on this one, Chris has drawn in where the gates would be separating the shared parking area from the residential parking area.
okay, and can anyone enter on Iron Street on this one?
Yes,
Okay, because it looks like they can get from that entrance over to the town parking.
so there's also a gate at the top of, basically you're coming in on the ramp, when you pass the access aisle for the shared parking, there'll be a gate there as well. Again, it's drawn on this one, looks like in blue.
Mr. Sepp, I think this is asking for the opposite direction.
Oh, they're coming on Irons or something. Okay, so Irons is the other floor of the garage, which would be on A101.
So there would be no way that non-residents could get into that.
Correct. The access to Irons is not public, that's residential.
And then other than that, you're relying on the residents to park in their proper spots.
Again, this is a management, this is a company that has management, they have thousands of units, thousands of parking spaces. When someone lives there and someone's parking in their space, they're the first ones to know about it. They find out someone's in my space, I'm space 12, that car gets, they can even pull up the video and find out who parked in their parking space, and if it's a resident, and obviously it's in here.
Board members? Mr. Secker? Type one, public parking, how many spaces again?
I think it was 50, 58 inside, and there's the spaces that are open to the air. Sorry, 56 inside, and this 22 that are the surface spaces outside.
Is there gonna be a fee for the parking, public parking?
That's gonna be worked out with the parking.
That's where it's going, and I remember I asked that the last time, because I didn't want to see public parking become a competition issue with the township of Toms River, where it was, less expensive, let's say, parking in town, so you weren't using the spots where, those that are benefiting from the downtown Toms River, parking.
Yeah, we'll be engaging in conversations as we have, very frankly, with the parking authority, making sure that that system is worked out with them, whether they decide to meter it or whether they decide to have some kind of.
So you'll have a partnership.
That's correct. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Lund?
You had alluded to if somebody's parking illegally in a spot, it's gonna be monitored. Who's gonna monitor? Is it gonna be in-house or is it outside?
In-house.
You're gonna have in-house security.
Yep.
Are
That's
you
correct.
going to have a generator in-house building? Because we do have a lot of power failures around here. And everything is key carded, all these entrances and exits. You get a blackout, nobody can get into your building or anywhere.
Yeah, we do have a generator for this building, yes.
You do have in-house security. On premises. In-house security. On premises.
Yes, we are. In fact, we have, that's what, either that or we, I think it's based upon the representation, that's why Mr. Leonard, we have 10 on-site employees for the applicant will be on-site at all times, working for the facility. And Mr. Ryan is here, he has something to address.
All our garages
I'm
are
sorry,
going
sir.
Swear you in, sir.
Do you swear the testimony about to be the truth? Your name, spell your last name, please.
Craig, Ryan, R-Y-N-O.
all our buildings are fully cambered. All the garages will have cameras within the garages, all the common areas have cameras, so everything that happens within that garage is reviewable by camera. So, and, okay, all right, and then, at night we generally have security.
Thank you.
Ready for the next one? Oh, that's the final, Mr. Matthew.
Sir,
Oh.
do you swear the testimony about to be the truth?
I do.
Let me have your name and spell your last name.
Sir, Matthew Flynn, Flynn. Business address is 101 Gibraltar Drive in Morris Plains, New Jersey.
What drive?
Gibraltar.
Morris Plains, thank you.
My education comes from Rutgers. I have my master's degree in planning and public policy. I have my professional planner's license in the state of New Jersey, as well as my AICP license, which is the national licensure for planners. Both are in good standing, and I've testified before about 100 boards like this across the state.
We accept your credentials.
Thank you. Mr. Flynn, you were commissioned to present testimony with respect to the two variances and several design reviews that have been requested as part of the application. Is that correct? Can you just give the board an overview as to your review of the project as well as rationale for the variance?
Sure. So as part of my planning conclusions, I did go out to the site and take some photographs using drone technology, flying a drone over the site. And if we could, I guess we submitted that already. That's Exhibit A7.
Oh, that's A7, that's part of your packet.
So if I can just shift the board's attention to Exhibit A7, this is, for the record, a series of 5 photographs taken by my office, again using drone technology. Sheet 1 is a view of the subject property looking east. So West Water Street is the street that is along the left there. Iron Street is along the bottom of the page. And what we see is, like Council mentioned at the outset, a property that's currently not contributing very much of anything to the area as it stands today. We have a substantially underutilized surface parking lot that's in a redevelopment area that wants to revitalize this downtown area to infuse a residential base as well as a mixed-use commercial presence as well. And so just off the bat, I want to point out sheet 1 there that shows pretty much what I'll say is the opposite of what the redevelopment plan is trying to achieve here. Sheet 2 just flips that drone around and we can see to the left of the page that portion of the Toms River that we are seeking to take advantage of as part of this proposal to provide that public amenity along Toms River to increase public enjoyment of, I would say, an asset that exists on this property. Just shifting along to sheet 3 now of Exhibit A7, just giving the board another view of the property. Sheet 4 shows now West Water Street is along the bottom of the page here. I will mention that the only setback variance that we're requesting this evening is for West Water Street. The building itself is actually going to be located in the same location as was approved at the last application. The only difference is that West Water Street was subsequently expanded or widened, so that setback variance is technically getting worse as a result of this application, but like I said, the building itself is going to remain in the same exact location as was approved. All of the other, and I'll just shift the board now to sheet 5, all of the other setbacks are actually in conformance. The step back requirements, so what I'll call the staircase effect on the building itself, is actually a requirement in the redevelopment plan. That's actually an improvement from the prior application that was approved. The previously approved application had no building step backs, and the application before you this evening does have step backs. So again, as Mr. Seckler said, the running theme of tonight, some of the improvements or changes from the last application. Reduction in number of stories, we do have a 45-foot reduction from 10 stories to 6 stories. Reduction in dwelling units, reduction in commercial space. Having said that, we are requesting the same number of parking spaces, which is compliant. We are proposing more bike parking, same number of affordable units, same public amenities, like I said, taking advantage of what I'm calling an asset on the property.
And as our engineer mentioned, we are actually eliminating one variance, which was that minimum building height of 45 feet or 25 feet along West Water Street. So that variance is gone. So the application before you this evening is requesting 3 variances, whereas 4 variances were requested at the last hearing. So just to walk the board through the variances that are being requested. Those 3 variances, like I said, building setback along West Water Street, 1.5 feet is proposed, 15 feet is required. Again, the prior approval was for 4.1 feet, but that did not include that right-of-way expansion that I mentioned. Building step back. The building is not stepped back for every 40 feet. However, like I said, that's an improvement over the application that was approved at the prior hearing. The prior approval was for 0 feet along all streets. And finally, building coverage, 51.9% is proposed, whereas 50% is the maximum required. Again, that's the same exact building coverage that was approved at the last hearing. Design waivers, sign quantity, 23 signs are proposed, whereas one sign per side is permitted. Wall sign area, 40% of the signs are not to exceed 60 square feet. This is actually also an improvement over the prior approval, whereas 4 signs exceeded that 60% threshold before, or that 60 square foot threshold before, now only 3 signs exceed that threshold. And importantly, I'll say that the total signage on the property overall has decreased from about 800 square feet to about 744 square feet. So overall, the overall massing of the signage has been reduced on the project. Basically, the planning rationale for all of that sea level relief is justified by the C2 balancing test, whereby the benefits of the application as a whole substantially outweigh any detriments. So that's a simple balancing test here. We look at the positives, counterbalanced by the negatives. In terms of the positives, this is a project that promotes the core intent of the redevelopment plan. Some of the goals of that redevelopment plan are to provide for an increase in the economic base by revitalizing underutilized properties, providing mixed use, that's pretty much the core of the redevelopment plan, to enhance opportunities for diverse types of public spaces. I think the applicant is certainly doing that. And to provide for a greater variety of housing opportunities and choices within the downtown. All of that comes directly from the redevelopment plan itself, and I think this application promotes all of those goals. In terms of the goals of the municipal land use law, I think this property can tie back to the purpose A, promotion of the general welfare with that provision of affordable housing units, the public promenade, the boardwalk. Purpose I, desirable visual environment. I think we saw how this is going to be a beautiful new building to vastly improve the value and quality of the area as a whole. Purpose C, to provide adequate light, air, and open space. Again, this building is only asking for 1 building setback variance. All the other setback variances are in compliance. In terms of building height, this is a building that is allowed per redevelopment plan to get up to 8 stories. We're only at 6 stories, so the massing of the building itself is smaller than what's anticipated in the redevelopment plan. Purpose G, variety of uses in appropriate locations. Again, mixed use is at the core of the redevelopment plan, and that's exactly what's proposed this evening. Purpose H, provision of the free flow of traffic. We heard from our traffic expert that this site can be adequately parked and it will function safely and efficiently both in and out of the property. Finally, purpose M, efficient use of land. Again, this is a significant scale back of the proposal that was previously before this board. I think it constitutes an efficient use of space. The flip side to that is the negative criteria, no substantial detriment to the public or to the zone plan. Again, project massing and the design is well within the limits of the redevelopment plan, certainly not overdevelopment by any means. The project advances all 7 purposes of the redevelopment plan. That's something that was put on the record at the prior hearing, and it certainly still holds true this evening. All of the deviations requested are minimal, and in the context of the overall project benefits, I would say inconsequential. We're going to look at the overall benefits here. The project will flow, function, operate safely and efficiently per expert testimony. And finally, I would say zoning compliance is just as important as the deviations. In this case, like I said, building stories complies, building height complies. There's a requirement in that plan for unoccupied open space. We have 23.4%, we only need 20%. Impervious coverage, we only have 76.6%. We're allowed up to 80%. And like I said, all the other setbacks, aside from that West Water Street setback, complies. The planning rationale for the design waivers is a less stringent test. Basically, the test is whether the waivers can be granted, or whether they are reasonable and appropriate, and whether strict adherence of those standards would justify any sound planning purpose. In this case, I think it's on the record that all signage serves a unique purpose here. It's necessary for branding, identification of commercial areas, as well as wayfinding. And we think that the proposed signage will be part of the architecture, it will blend in. And again, the overall square footage of that signage is actually a decrease over the prior approval. So with that, I think I'll open myself up to questions. I think this is a very appropriate application, again, well within the limits of the redevelopment plan. And I think that it will satisfy everything that redevelopment plan seeks to do here, which is to revitalize the downtown.
And we'll go to our professionals. Mr. Hudak?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The only real question I have concerns the affordable units. How many affordable units are required to be provided percentage-wise in this development?
One second, sorry. Uh, 42 units are required, which is the 15%, and we have 43.
So you're providing essentially what was required under the ordinance, in this case, the court order that we have.
That's correct.
And it's in compliance with our ordinance ultimately. That was the only question I had. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Board members?
Going back to the architect. The architect,
Chris?
with these pretty pictures that you presented to us, does that boardwalk remain the same as in the pictures?
We certainly want to. That is the design we've done. We've been working extensively with the civil engineer and the landscape architect in his office. And these renderings were actually done based on the final progress set of drawings that we have for construction with this firm. So yes, that's all we've done.
So you're designing it that way for the township to approve it?
That's right.
All right.
We've done that way.
Okay. Board members? All right, is that your
That would conclude our
final
presentation.
professional?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any other,
I know.
nothing else? All right. So what we'll do right now is, why don't we bring each professional up one by one, and we'll open it up to the public questions for each.
What we're gonna do is the first call here, so they, if the person has
Yes.
a question of the architect, we can bring you up.
Yeah, so, let's see.
And can we, Mr. Chairman, can we also, if an individual, like, really,
Yeah.
a person has also a comment with respect to a question and a comment, perhaps they can.
Yeah, we can combine them. Okay. They're in the interest of time, sure. So why don't we start with Mr. Pereira? Does anybody from the public have a question for Mr. Pereira? Question? Yes, ma'am? And I recognize you, sir, next.
Just wait, since we have to be cultured.
Yes.
Tell me.
Dana Joel.
Spell it.
Tormollan. I have a couple quick questions. Is the affordable housing a lottery system that you're going to use?
It will be regulated by fiction.
I
I know that flooding was discussed and a couple of my concerns were already answered. How high will the bulkhead be where the waterfront is? Because right now that ramp it like opens up the river to the parking lot in Iron Street. How high will that bulkhead be?
That will be the civil engineer, so I'll let him answer. Anything that's site, outside of the building structure.
Oh, okay.
Do you want to, just to keep this.
The bulkhead approves to go up to elevation 4, that wooden bulkhead out there, I'd be surprised it's falling apart if it's at 1.5 foot. So elevation 4 is the top of the bulkhead, so it'll be a nice smooth vinyl, and then where it gets to the boat ramp, the former boat ramp goes away.
Right.
So,
So that'll
and then
help
along
reduce
the,
some of
and then it just goes to the vegetated area along the rest of the current.
Okay, and I don't know. And the board, there's been chatter about the 166 bridge being elevated. Is that coming into play at all that anyone is aware of, or is that just a rumor? And would any road work that's being done have to be done before the project begins?
I can take the question regarding, this was brought up by one of the parts where we're coordinating with the township continuously. The DOT is going to be at some point having, it's been talked about having that bridge reconstructed because of, just its age and everything else. According to my conversations with the township planner, there's no defined, designation of when that might begin. It's all been talked about, but no one knows. But eventually it's going to be because it needs to be, repaired. It needs to be, just like other infrastructure, it needs to be repaired. But we don't know when that's going to happen.
Okay, and just to verify, it's 281 units, not 500 units?
No. 281, engineering said it's 280.
No.
Thank you, Mrs. Carroll. Yes, sir.
You swear the testimony about the truth.
I do.
State your name and spell your last name.
Mark Mutter, M-U-T-T-E-R, 53 Mountain Road, Township. And my question is to Mr. Guerrero. From the architectural perspective, there are in downtown Toms River other apartment complexes. And I call you specifically to mind the apartments on Washington Street, 2 stories, next to the county administration building. The 4-story units on Legion Court, the 2- and 5-story structures on Colfax Street, and the 2-story apartments on Water Street across from the MUA. They're all in downtown Toms River. And I want to follow up on what Ms. Pasco touched upon in her questions to you. Is there an analysis as to how this plan, if approved, will compare or contrast to those existing apartments here in downtown Toms River, specifically as to, first, height, second, the number of units, 3, the exterior fabric, and 4, the signage? Was there a compare and contrast analysis as to what is proposed here to what is in existence in Toms River today?
So I think I could break down your question because we're talking about height and signage, and we're talking about
Number of units,
and we're talking about
and exterior fabric.
So I think the easiest answer to your question is we have followed the redevelopment plan that was implemented for this area. So I understand you mentioned projects that are located throughout the downtown area, but we're designing the project with coming years of very few variances, minor variances, and we're following the redevelopment plan and what the town and that redevelopment plan was written to guide us into what we're proposing here. So I think that should answer your question in reference to how many units, the building height, and all those, because we're here with very minor variances that don't touch upon those things. In reference to an analysis to compare this building to these other ones, I think the answer is the same. We're coming here and we're following the guidance of the redevelopment plan, and we're proposing a building that is 99% compliant with that plan.
And I thank you for your answer. I will want to comment on his answer. I think his answer is in the negative, and I think it's important for the board to have that analysis. Either make them do an analysis, or you, on your own initiative, as our planning board, undertake such an analysis. I want to see what exists versus what might exist if this scenario gets approved. And I would like to make general comments as well as to the entire application. Is that now, or would that be later?
Mr. Mutter, do you have questions of any of the
That was my question to this man.
any of the other experts?
The engineer.
Yeah, but why don't we take care of
And then,
questions?
Mr. Mutter, then at the end, you can make your double.
All right, all right.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, I agree.
All right, as to Mr. Briscoe, you have several times referred to what you call as the decorative fixture. Your words.
Yes.
What is that? And do we have any graphics of what things would look like if approved compared to the decorative fixture of what's here in downtown Toms River today?
The series light that was provided around this site was given to us directly by the township professionals. There's a grant, it's called a Libertyville series light. We took it directly from what is being proposed. It's a light that is very similar to what is on Washington, as close as possible. The existing lights on Washington are older. But the fixture that is proposed was given to us directly by the town as what is being used as part of it. It mimics what's on Washington Ave right now, right in front of this building. It's the same type of fixture.
Are there any graphics I can see visually what you described?
Yes, I think I might have some.
The theme of my comments and questions are, what does Toms River look like now? And what might it look like tomorrow?
I'm sorry, I'm looking for my folder.
Mr. Chairman, while we're waiting, can I make my comments as to the entire application now?
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Mr. Mutter.
Again, my name is Mark Butter. I reside at 53 Manor Road in Toms River. I am the township historian. But let me be clear. Let me be very clear. I speak tonight solely as a private citizen. There's an old adage in the law that the Supreme Court reads the election returns, meaning that it is fully aware of what's on people's minds when it decides large questions for our country. I invite you tonight to do that too, as you're about to decide a large question for our community. The election in our town this past June for mayor and council was a referendum on development, redevelopment, and yes, overdevelopment. In many ways, it was a referendum on this board. We all know what happened back in June. The crystallizing issue was those two 10-story towers that you approved 2 years ago on a cold, lonely night in December, just days before Christmas, and at the height of a pandemic when people's concerns were elsewhere. And as the Asbury Park Press reported, when it was approved, it was done late at night. If ever built, those towers would be the largest residential structures in all of Ocean County. They would be seen from the Garden State Parkway. They would give our downtown a skyline, and they would transform the village of Toms River into the city of Toms River. It's all memorialized in your own records. The official minutes of the Toms River Township Planning Board show that in just 5 short paragraphs, the application by the developer in 2021 was put into minutes in your deliberations and a final vote. 5 paragraphs, 1 meeting, on a project that would change downtown Toms River forever. We can do better than that. You can do better than that. I ask that you decide this application tonight differently. Postpone the vote on this. Think about the new plan. Keep the public hearing open. And do what I did in 2000 when I was mayor to get our open space program started. Get the whole community involved. That's what our neighbor to the north, Westfield, did when their downtown was under consideration for redevelopment. They held numerous public meetings, getting input from the stakeholders to decide their future. And you have time to do this. Your own agenda says that the time to act on this application is to January 25th of next year. We can do this. You should do this. Continue this application and reschedule this. Use the meetings available to you so that our whole town knows about this proposed revision. Post it on page 1 of the Township's website and on its Facebook page. Advertise it through other social media and in the print media. Proactively invite our many civic and homeowners associations to come and give their input. The bare minimum of a legal ad buried in the back pages of the sports page, of the sports section of the official newspaper doesn't cut it. Our town calls for better. And when it is argued that you can't do that, our hands are tied, that this is a clean application, you can do this. A planning board is given wide latitude in its exercise of its delegated discretion. And this is not me talking. It's our New Jersey courts talking. That famous land use case of Witt versus the Borough of Maywood in 1998 tells us that. And while it is true that a planning board is not free to expand the legal notice requirements of the land use law, as the Appellate Division said in 2007 in that Builders League of South Jersey case with the Township of Franklin, there is no prohibition whatsoever to continuing this matter for more input and more consideration before a final decision is made. You have almost 3 months to decide that. We can do better. You can do better than that now infamous 2021 late at night decision. What would more input bring? More questions and more answers. Why now 6 stories? What about 4? How about 2? What about the number of residential units? The list of questions goes on and on. Like my question earlier about a specific analysis regarding architecture, comparing today and tomorrow in downtown Toms River. I urge you to do more, to do it better, to do it differently. The great silent majority of our town was not so silent back in June. You must know, that the overwhelming majority of sincere, dedicated township residents have concerns about the future of downtown Toms River and the height of building in our beloved downtown. Perhaps more time, more input, more thought will lead to more compromise by this applicant and we here who call Toms River our home. We all can do better. Thank you.
Mr. Meyer, you have a question?
Just point out that this is the downtown core street project area pamphlet that was provided by the township professionals that shows the decorative type of fixture that is being proposed.
No, Mr. Grisco, is that part of any exhibits that have been?
I'm sorry, it is not.
Let's mark that as an exhibit
Yeah.
and please identify before you explain it.
I think it's A8.
I'm sorry for that, yes. Again, this is entitled Downtown Core Streetscape Project Area, and it has the town seal on it in the upper corner. Again, this is for the Main Street project, but we've worked with professionals and we want to incorporate the decorative fixture that everyone is familiar with along Washington Street. This is page 2. Okay? The township has picked a current fixture that is as close as possible to the existing fixtures. We are taking that, it's called the Libertyville series, we are bringing that downtown. This is one of the discussions I had brought up, Putty Park, we're going to use that light. No, we're going to use this light to bring consistency from down Main Street, Washington Street, down to Water Street as well, and wrapping around the site. So this light that was provided, this decorative light, as I've said, was directly from the township.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Thank you, Mr. Grisco. Yes, sir.
Swear the testimony about to
Yes.
so the name is right last name.
Paul Williams, last name is Williams. So, I have a couple of questions, I'll be very brief, I hope, for the architect, the gentleman with traffic, and the other engineer. Anyone of you can jump in with this question. So, I want to ask you about the northwest corner of this project. That would be West Water Street and Iron Street, correct? Anybody? Yeah, he said,
Yeah, correct.
the transcriber bits, okay. And any of the three of you, are you aware that on the north side, across the street, on Water Street, that there's a firehouse there? Any of you?
Which one, sir, would you like to ask for?
Any one of you three gentlemen can jump in and answer the question, because I know that my question is going to touch on any of you at the same time.
Who would like to answer that question?
There's a firehouse across the street.
There is. And how close is it to the corner of Iron and Water Street?
Firehouse?
Yes,
It's basically right up on the street level.
literally right there, right? Are you aware of how many doors there are in that firehouse that contain emergency vehicles?
I'm not certain how many, it probably has at least 2.
Would you be surprised if I told you there's 3?
Could be, I'm not sure how many it has.
All right, and if you're not sure of how many there are, you probably don't know what is contained inside one of those garage doors?
No idea.
Okay. Would you be surprised if I told you that there is the heavy rescue vehicle located inside there?
I think you said he's not aware of this.
Okay, I just want to be sure that.
I think you said it.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, in the planning of this, and this is probably for the gentleman that's involved with the traffic, you said your office is in Rutherford, correct?
Correct.
Are you familiar with this area generally?
Yes, I have. I've worked on probably 6 projects in Township.
6. Up in Rutherford, you have a paid fire company, correct?
Yes, I believe that's a paid company.
Okay, and typically, if you know, a paid company is actually on the premises when there's an emergency call, correct?
Yes,
Okay, are you aware that in this area you have a volunteer company?
I'm unaware.
So you don't know that, right? So if you didn't know that, you probably didn't do any study or analysis of the time it takes for emergency responders to get to the firehouse when there's an emergency call, correct?
I'm unaware of how long it takes to get to the firehouse.
And there was no study with regard to that at all.
Correct.
Do you have any idea what the traffic is like on that Water Street? Aside from the data, I mean like visually.
Yeah, I've seen it, I've sat in it, I've experienced it. Again, what I'll state is that this area is slated for improvements that are proposed that take into account all the traffic that we're generating by this project.
Do you know if those studies are gonna take into consideration the amount of time that it takes for an emergency responder to get to the firehouse?
Again, the designers are improving this area, so however long it takes now, I imagine it's going to be faster. I don't know if they've done that, because I'm not the individual, it's township or county hired consultants that are performing that.
So you don't know, correct?
That, you did say that, that's probably a question for the county.
All right, well, right now, the county engineer is not your witness this evening.
Well, I think you already answered your question.
All right,
We'll move on to the next one.
Let me do what I'm doing. Thank you, Mr. Shea.
I'll let you know the next question.
All right.
No.
This is
Mr. Williams,
not your
Mr. Williams, the chair is running the meeting, not you, okay? Okay?
I'm waiting for the chair to say something, not Mr. Shea.
Say something.
And he's gonna say something if you let him, okay?
I'm waiting.
Yes?
I heard you. I'm
I
waiting.
wanna make sure you heard me.
I heard you.
Thank you.
You're on board,
In what respect, sir?
okay? You're becoming argumentative.
With the witness or Mr. Shea? Who's been interrupting me?
Sorry, both.
Okay.
Let them answer your questions. I'll give you all the time you need,
Thank you.
all right? We understand people have strong feelings, including yourself, but we can all be civil here too. All right?
It's easier when someone's not interrupting me.
Sorry.
In any event.
Mr. Williams,
And I
Mr. Williams, lose the snark also. You hear me? Lose the snark.
That's not gonna happen. But in any event.
Okay, well then, guess what? Then we're gonna end your question.
Is that what you really want? Would you want
No,
to? You want to infringe on my right to comment?
Nobody's
And ask
infringing on
questions?
your rights. You're infringing on the rights of the board to conduct an orderly meeting. Let me ask you this. What is the point of the question? What do you want to know? What is the point you're making?
I'm gonna get there
That
when
would
I make my comments.
Well, no, we can ask you to make a proffer as to why you're asking the question.
I would like to know what these men know and do not know, so I can speak upon that during my comment part.
What's the proffer of the question? What is the basis for the question? Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so
The
say
basis
it.
for my
So
question,
say it and then ask your question.
the point that I would like to get from any of these witnesses, Mr. Coons, is what they haven't presented to you. And I don't want to accuse them of not knowing certain things. So I am trying to elicit that
What are
information.
what are the points that you feel they haven't addressed?
The traffic that is going to occur with this building, although it's been reduced, it's going to have, one of my questions was going to be for them to confirm for me how many parking spaces just for the tenants.
You can, and that's certainly a question.
I'm trying to get
Just
there.
hearing out, Mr. Williams, it helps everybody. There's no secrets here, okay? If you let us know what you're getting to, that will help with the questions, okay? You understand what I'm saying?
I do.
And then you can ask questions, and it will help everybody understand better why you're asking and the substance of the answers.
That would have occurred had I not been interrupted.
No, we weren't even close to it.
Yeah, not sure of that, but okay.
I trust me, I've taken a lot more cross-examination than you have,
I'm sure that you have.
okay? That's just a procedural thing. It's
I
not-
get it.
Okay, so that's all of our point, okay?
Are we done?
No, the question is, are you done?
I'm not.
Okay.
All right.
Ask a question about the parking, please.
So, could any of you please remind me of how many parking spaces there are for the tenants?
For the residents, there are 333 spaces exclusively for them, and then there are 78 parking spaces that are for the public.
Okay.
Shared.
So just in terms of the traffic that is going to be added to the downtown area, we're going to add potentially 300 plus vehicles to the downtown traffic.
Well, again, we are replacing a lot that has parking spaces as well. So if you're going to correlate, we have this many parking spaces in our building, you have to remember that there was parking spaces that could have been used over time, generating traffic previously.
Are you aware if those parking spaces were being used to their maximum capacity?
They have not been used.
They have not, so there hasn't been 300 plus vehicles in that lot, correct?
Correct, but it may not be every 411 parking spaces occupied by the tenants building.
How about we say about 200 maybe? Be really generous, I would say maybe 200, 150, 100, a lot, right? A lot more vehicles coming into the downtown area, correct?
Correct.
All right, good. All right, now I'm done with the traffic part. The next question I have is about something that I heard often. I heard it from Mr. Shea when he made his comments, and I heard it from each of the witnesses, save for the last one, pretty much. I heard same and consistent as the previous design, the one that's already been approved. Okay? My question, though, is this. About the 10-story building. What was that building made of, or supposed to be made of?
He was currently under design as a concrete superstructure.
Concrete superstructure, right?
Yes.
Any reason why it was concrete superstructure?
We had many choices. It was the choice from the developer to do that in that particular on that construction.
As the architect, are you aware, or is it true, that if a building, such as an apartment complex, is to be built over a certain amount of stories, that it is required to be constructed with this concrete superstructure?
That's not a true statement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Enlighten me, that's why I'm asking. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the design that you currently have, is that going to be constructed of the same material?
Unlikely.
Unlikely.
Unlikely. It would likely be concrete for the two first floors, the parking levels, and wood frame on the floors of it.
Wood frame.
Mhm.
4 stories of wood frame on top of concrete, right?
Thousands and thousands of units.
Yep. So, as the architect, when you're designing these things, are you aware of the cost factors, concrete versus wood frame?
Certainly, yes.
Is it significantly cheaper to go wood frame than concrete?
Not as it used to be.
Not, well,
Post-COVID. It's
post-COVID.
Yes, it's still cheaper, but not significantly as it used to be.
So, when the 10-story building was approved, there was conversations not only with fire prevention, but also with the fire department, correct?
Yes.
Have you had those same conversations? And refresh my memory, you said something about fire prevention, you had some discussions, and they had some requirements. And you said that you're going to comply with those.
That's right. We received a review letter from the fire prevention, or the Bureau of Fire Prevention. That was dated, it was part of the record, August 14th of this year, in which the plans that were submitted here were reviewed by them, and there were a number of comments that were made. And my statement was that we had reviewed and we complied with all of them.
Can you tell me what those comments were?
Yeah, and I mentioned that through testimony. I think the biggest item that I discussed was the protection of the EV parking spaces with additional sprinkler heads. There are also issues or requests to provide additional fire hydrants around the building. Also, FEC connections to be installed in different locations and how to control them. Knox box to access the building. So there were comments that we can add concerns with compliance.
And the board here has a copy of that?
Yes. Sure.
So,
Mr. Williams, if I may, they have the letter, but even if they didn't, this resolution, the approval, will still be contingent on approval by the Bureau of Fire Protection. They're not going to carry over from the Department.
Right.
They'll have to get an approval on the amended plans, which they have, but it's a requirement. They just can't rely on the approval on the Department.
I get that. But part of the reason why I asked, my proffer, if you will, part of the reason why I asked is because I recall
when we were going through this previously, that there were members from the fire department that had concerns about the proposed 10 stories. And so the question that I had tonight was, not only did you speak with fire prevention, which I thought I heard you say, but have you spoken with any of the firefighters? The men and women that will actually have to go into that building in the event that there's a fire?
I have not.
You have not. But you did before?
We had a conversation with the fire, on the building department side with the fire chief, or the fire inspector.
The same group.
Same group, right, fire prevention.
So that was it, and I thank you, sir. I heard it's the show.
Mr. Williams, now my turn for smart. Wasn't that easier to do it that way?
It's always easy when someone's not interrupting me, sir.
Good resist, good.
No, neither could you. We're elected.
No, we're not. I'm sure we're not.
I'm pretty sure we're not either. I was being snarky.
Ma'am?
I'm sorry, can I just ask a quick question?
Yes.
In regard to the discussion regarding the fire funding, does Township have a ladder that would reach the 6 stories?
I'm not sure. Although I'd like to add that, the buildings are 4 stories over, or 3 stories over, 2 levels of parking. It's a very common building structure. It's what the code allows. The buildings are fully sprinklered to a certain level. There are different levels of sprinkler depending on the classification of the building, the number of stories, and if it's either residential or not. And there is also a number of fire prevention features, such as rated stair shafts that firefighters can usually fight a fire through that because there's 10 pipes on the stair shafts. And a lot of the comments that we received from the fire chief was asking additional access to FDC connections and fire hydrants to be able to more easily feed those sprinkler systems and ways to fight a fire. So I'm sure, based on his comments, they were very thorough, and I'm sure he's very aware of what it would take to fight a fire in a building like this.
Because we did have this discussion at the last application, and I'm aware that there's not one for the 10 stories, and that the building was constructed in certain ways to address the concerns of if a fire broke out. Is the same materials that were present before currently present, or is there a different mechanism in place?
So as mentioned before, the building that was designed before was, because of the building height, it can be built on with wood, which is combustible. Although the building that we're building now, it complies with our code. So there are ratings that we're supposed to provide on the corridor walls and the stair walls. They're all different ratings, different rating on the fire, on the doors that access those different spaces, so on and so forth. So this would be a safe building. This is a standard throughout the state, throughout the country, that's used for this type of construction.
So would it be fair to say that the construction of the last design was safer than this design?
I want to say safer, right? The building code is here for a reason, right? It allows, based on studies that are done, and egress, and time that people need to be able to access the building and safely access the building in case of a fire. So, this is a building that's, as a matter of fact, most of the country is allowed to do 5 stories of wood over parking. New Jersey doesn't. It's 4 over. So there's a level of safety that we as a state have above and beyond the rest of the country. So it is a safe building, independent if it's built with wood or not. It follows all the codes, it follows all the requirements of Township.
You have the letter handy, may I just see the copy that you have there?
I'm sorry?
The letter from the.
Oh, the letter. Yeah, it's dated August 13th.
Thank you.
No problem.
You can continue on if I have questions. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
find out the truth.
Irene Watson, Irene Watson's everywhere. I have 3 questions and then a comment. I think one is for the architect.
Maybe just a very
Regarding the small courtyards, what is the square feet perimeter? What's the best?
So let me start with the 3 courtyards along Varian Street. Those are about 2,000 square feet, roughly. Those courtyards, those are 2,000, roughly 2,000. This one is about 1,300 square feet. It's open at one end, so it's not enclosed. And the larger one is about 4,300, 4,400 square feet.
So these units, right, this is a hallway, an interior hallway. And then from this building to this, going across the courtyard, about how many feet is that?
I'd say, it's about 20 feet, I would say.
So their view is just going to be the other apartments.
Well, we will be, as I mentioned, what we'd like to do is there's a lot of planting that happens here. There's
but
a lot
your
of,
view
yes.
looking at it,
Yes.
look down, but your
Yes.
view looking at it will be the other apartments. So it's going to be like really city kind of.
Well, some of the units, right?
Yeah.
Some of the units are facing the courtyards.
And then for the parking, and they say you're going to raise the parking lot. Where is all that water going to go? Is the post office going to flood more? Because there's major flooding in that area a few times a year.
All I can say is the existing post office, that's at the elevation it is. We're not changing that.
Well, no, you're not changing that, but you're raising the ground near it, therefore the water will run off and I think it kind of
The road, the Township's road, and that grant project is working on doing improvements to the roadways, the raised elevations of the roadways, to try to alleviate this. It is what it is. Any stormwater runoff is being managed, collected, and discharged. But the post office is what it is. It's at that elevation, and the roadways are part of that project that they're going to be trying to raise and alleviate some of those areas that you're saying that flood.
well, yeah, we've seen the floods and it just isn't good. But then one other thing, if there's going to be designated parking, I don't know for the tenants.
Yeah, yes.
And so designated parking will, if you require a parking space because you are a tenant, will you pay extra for your parking space?
You get one space, so if you're a single space person, that's included with the rent. If you want a second space or you want the tandem spaces, that they charge.
Now, the last thing, this would be a comment, and it would be to the planning board. Mark Nutter spoke very eloquently about the look of Toms River. I did read almost all of the plan that was back in 1979, 76, and this was going to be a seaport look, this was going to be the village of. And that's what I would love to see. But there's another big issue that the people of the town, I know a handful, but the people of the town were very concerned about in this project, and that's the pilot program. We are losing so much money because of that payment in lieu of taxes for 30 years and no tax money going to the schools. This is, I think, just disgraceful. I don't know enough about taxes and money and that type of thing to go in and say, oh, this is the spreadsheet, this is the amount of money over the years, but it's just very upsetting that you're going to put this on. Well, I'm 76 years old, but my children and my grandchildren, and they're gonna be losing out. And I just think that should be looked at. To sell a piece of property for $1, and then you have the parking authority actually taking away the 20 minutes of free parking that they used to give you a few years ago if you ran into the library, bought a donut. Even went in to pay your taxes. I have to pay 75 cents to go and pay my taxes. So I just think that part should be reconsidered. But thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Watson. Ma'am?
I wanted to make sure there wasn't a easier the testimony.
Kathy Lazaro, Lazaro.
You said yes.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. I don't know right now if I have questions for the other people, but I had a couple things I'd like to say. I do live in the village of Toms River. I used to live in Hoboken many years ago. And if you want to see flooding, it was. Now, I lived in North Dover, I never seen flooding. But because I live off Washington and I'm always in the vicinity of West Water Street, it's just commonly you go down that way to get everywhere. You avoid the times that the courthouses, the township, it's just stuck. It's gridlock. It's not moving. It's not going nowhere. Water doesn't go anywhere. Approximately, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, I lost an SUV. I got stuck coming out of the post office, and it was too late. I was there, a woman got stuck in front of me. The car got totaled out. Where are all these vehicles going to go when we don't? And just like that woman before me said, today I had to pay 75 cents just to confirm that this hearing was being heard tonight because of the fact that it was on social media or on the Jersey Shore website that it was on for October 28th, which we came to not know that. I hear from these experts about the sidewalks, and just like people said, you know West Water Street has always been a flooded area. It just rains. A couple of, maybe about a month ago, it was flooded again. How much are you gonna rise? Rise what? There's nothing to rise. And when you get the grudge, it's gonna be there. I just think that you people, I came to Toms River when it was Dover Township, or the Township of Dover. Now it's the Township of Toms River, which is very consistent, which is great. Next, it's going to be the city of Toms River, and there's not going to be no ifs and buts about it. I am so proud to call myself a resident of Toms River and know Mark Mutter and been educated through the years of Huddy Park and all that. You people up here want to destroy something that's so beautiful that the homes in the village in Toms River are being sold like crazy because people say, I want to get out now before it happens. Give us a break. They didn't complain too much when taxes went up, but here, I hear about signage. It's only going to be on Water Street. Are they going to have the big amber alerts? Flooding ahead, flooding ahead, flooding ahead. No, this project doesn't belong here. And I heard some of the experts from Morristown, Rutherford, yes, they're bigger developments, they're paid firemen, like Mr. Williams stated. This is just crazy and ludicrous. And I just had a question here. We hear about parking spots and more and more and more congestion. This isn't a festival. Everybody that I've spoke to has no argument at all about doing something with that waterfront development. It's overdue. Bring something great to it that families can have. Don't destroy that what these grandfathers built down here and destroy it to greed and greed and greed. And I'm sorry, I was not aware of the first, Mr. Heisen, hearing on this when it was the 10 stories. Like people said before, it was the heart of COVID. People were here, government was telling us you had to get vaccinated or you lose your job, you had to stay home, courthouses were closed, buildings were closed, you had to mail your taxes in, you couldn't do things. But you got approved, and I just find it a little, maybe curious that the people on the planning board and the attorney that represents this applicant, it seems that it had no problem being approved without more people doing their homework. And I'm just asking, for the future generations and the schooling that we're sustaining now, you apparently don't go to town hall meetings. I do. And Mr. Sid constantly is coming to the town or asking for properties to be purchased so they can offset their budget. We know we've been cut from the state. We know we're a Republican town. We know that already. But when you go to the politicians and you people, I just don't know. You have to be on Water Street. You have to be downtown here, okay? Or by the courthouse. It's different. It's a little bit higher. But downtown here, we suffer. And I'm just sorry to tell you that I just can't believe that you people live in Toms River. And maybe because you live in different sections, it don't bother you. There was no guarantee that Sandy would never come back, okay? And we all know what happened in the other part of the township. This is just a very, very sad thing. And I would hope that you people, to me, look very educated people, that you would use your head on your shoulders and say no. Or you're gonna put it off for a while and go through more, surveys for people's opinion. I'm very shocked, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm very heartbroken that more people from this township didn't come to this. But again, the people voted on I believe it was June 6th, that primary. That's why they voted out Mayor Hill. That's why they voted out the 3 council people, because they had it with the overbuilding. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else have a question, comment? Before we close this portion?
Can I do my comment now?
Sarah?
Sure. Oh, thank you.
Hello?
Do you swear the testimony about to give the truth?
Yes.
State your name and spell your last name correctly.
Paul, H-U-L-S-E. I just have a comment. I know change is hard, and that's one thing that we're always facing, Toms River. We're always facing challenges. They were talking about the fire department. We have a lot of truck. We have a lot of truck in Silverton, I live in Silverton. Firemen stay overnight, the volunteers, they stay overnight. There's change, I'm for it. I'm always for change. And I think change is good, and it's hard. And we always face that challenge. So you guys are faced with the challenge of making change. It's going to be hard. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Hollis. Yes.
So,
Mr. Rotor, 1 second. We just have things.
Do you swear the testimony about to give will be the truth? State your name and spell your last name.
I just want to say, I know that change is hard for this town. I just want to say, I know that change is hard, and it's hard for this town, and it's hard for the elderly people in this town. But coming from a younger perspective, I just opened up a new art gallery at 40 Main Street. We had our grand opening on Friday night. Toms River artist community has always been a small community. People are craving the change in this town. We had 500 people in the opening Friday night. We have been packed every single night, every single day. We're selling thousands of dollars worth of art out of that building. We were across the street from 53 Main Street for years. You will then see, right on the corner now, Washington and Main.
and everybody's loving it. The comments that we get, it's just crazy. They want the change, they can't wait to see what happens in this town, they can't wait. So it's not everybody that's hating this. Personally, change is progress. This town needs to progress. You have to come forward. So that's.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Williams?
All down. I'll be nice.
Thank you.
My comment is that, first, it was interesting hearing Mr. Mutter speak. I've never spoken to Mr. Mutter in person or on the phone, communicated with him. I only know who he is because he's Mark Mutter, he's a town historian. I'm a lifelong resident of Township. And so I want to echo, maybe not all, but many of his sentiments, particularly about the urging for you to not vote on this tonight. It would be easier for me to say, don't do it. Because I wasn't mortally opposed to this until I couldn't get enough information that made it make sense to me. I'm a big downtown guy. Professionally, I'm a photographer and videographer, and I DJ sometimes. And for years, I've been volunteering my services to take pictures of the downtown nights out on Friday, Saturday, to pictures of the parades. Since at least, I think, 2015, 2016, I've been volunteering to cover the Halloween parade. My apartment is on Broad Street. I went to high school east for a little while. And for a long time, I wasn't in this area. I was away. What I call the involuntary extended vacation. It would have been real easy for me to say, you know what, Toms River is bad, and I'm not going back there. Toms River is my home. And the one thing that has always bothered me, the reason why I try to keep an open mind, but I am personally opposed to it, the one thing that bothers me the most is that this is going to forever and irrevocably alter that area. There's no going back from that. And I made a couple of points tonight, my concerns for the health and safety of the potential residents of that building. Also, though, the health and safety of the rest of the residents of Toms River who might need that heavy rescue vehicle out of that firehouse. That our volunteer firemen who are coming from Beechwood, who are coming from the other side of the parkway, coming down Acres Road, trying to get over here, maybe trying to come down Washington, maybe trying to come down Hooper. I think about how long it might take a volunteer fireman to get to there. My stepfather was a volunteer fireman at that house. So that's where my concerns are coming from. And I try to keep an open mind about it. But nobody made an effort to make it make sense. And now there's a lot of people, we've heard it over and over, you know, that the primary election was generally a referendum. Personally, I like Mo. Personally, I like Kevin, Josh, and Matt. The one conversation that I had with them was that you guys didn't do enough to communicate this to our community. Now, what happens if you don't approve this? Here's what happens. It becomes really, really expensive for the developer to try to build 10 stories of concrete. You may or may not do it. It may be an opportunity to reopen conversations and to come to a point where it's more palatable to me and some residents who are off the rails opposed to it. There's opportunity for those conversations to be had if you do not approve this. But again, I'm not going to urge you to do that this evening. What I am going to ask you to do, and I'm going to urge you to do it, is to take some heed to Mr. Mutter's comments and his suggestion that there be more of an outreach to the community to get their input, maybe explain some things and make it make sense to them. I know that there was some efforts early on, but it wasn't enough. And I wholeheartedly believe that that's why there was a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of miscommunication in people's minds when they went to the ballot in June. I would ask you, I urge you, to not decide on this evening. That one of you have the courage, and another of you have the courage to second a motion that this be tabled for another hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am?
I, as most of the people in here know, was very opposed to the 10 stories that were being built. I never opposed the change of downtown, like it's been said before. Nobody likes change. It's a hard thing to adapt to. It's a hard thing to wrap your head around. After working with the developer and working with the mayor and council to meet with them, I have to say that this project is way more to the liking of most of us who were here for 2.5 years fighting the towers themselves. I can't speak for everyone, because you're not ever going to make everybody happy, but the majority of the people that I've spoken to feel that 6 stories is way better than 2 towers that would overlook most of the downtown area. Again, they heard us, they did hear us, and they considered our concerns and our thoughts, and I know it's a difficult situation to be in. I also was told that if this proposal does not go through, the towers have already been approved, therefore we can move forward with the towers. So I'm going to ask the board to seriously consider this new development as opposed to the 2 towers for the integrity of our town, for the integrity of downtown. It seems that the materials being used and the look of the building will be a better aspect for as far as what we were looking for. So I just ask you to consider this. Mr. Butter, I respect everything he says, but we've already had that conversation for 2 years. And unfortunately, it's going forward whether we like it, whatever. And that's just the way it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one.
Yeah. Come on up.
Yes.
Mary, Bennett, spell your first name. M-A-I-R-I-N. Bennett, B-E-N-N-E-T-T. Good evening. I'm the executive director for the Business Improvement District. I have been for the past 3 years, and I have been definitely trying to revitalize the downtown area. That's my main goal, and my main objective is to bring more businesses. I've listened to the public, I've listened to the residents, I've listened to other business owners. Everyone wants more retail, wants more business, but you have to, in order to do that, to attract, you have to change the demographics of the town. Unfortunately, going out and doing studies within the past 3 years, the small businesses, the retail businesses, only 7% of their income coming in is from residents in downtown Toms River. So we're not able to really capitalize and provide stuff that our residents can take advantage of, but also that newer families can. So previously, we've sent out the RFP for a developer many, many moons ago, and we got one person that believed in the revitalization of downtown Toms River, and that was Capodaglia. So we're excited to have someone that's willing to work with the town, listening to people. We even had 2 7-hour meetings for the public. We had all the professionals come in. I helped with the public information. We did it for social media, we've advertised. I've worked with a lot of developers. This one, we have an opportunity that we'll have someone that will listen to the community and is trying to revitalize the downtown. This is a great opportunity for us. Unfortunately, downtown Toms River does not utilize the waterfront. It's used for, unfortunately, for bad things. We have fluctuation of, crime, drugs. We all saw that with the old motel. We've taken that down. Not only do we have someone that will help us revitalize, we also have someone that's willing to spend $5 million and give back to the community for public use. This is a great opportunity that we can't disregard. We have to continue moving further and into the future and really take advantage of what's being offered to us. So to really say, wow, let's give us more time. How much more time do you want? Some of these people have been working for over 20 years to revitalize downtown. We have the opportunity right in front of us. We have an opportunity to grow, not to overdevelop, but to develop and to move forward. This opportunity will give us a chance to really save the downtown, get more of those businesses that the residents want. Who knows? I know everyone always says, let's get a Whole Foods down here. Whole Foods won't come. Why? Because they do their demographic studies. They don't come into a neighborhood where they can't be supported by people not purchasing from them. Recently, I've been able to get a flood of new restaurant business owners, new retail business owners that want to come to downtown because they hear the stories on the street. They hear that we're moving forward. They hear that we're putting money and we're growing and we're providing better space. And we have additional people, young families coming in. We need to be able to provide housing and also to be able to provide additional retail to support this growth and give what everyone wants. It's a win-win situation. You get public use, you get a developer that's willing to work with us, that's willing to listen to us, and able to provide something to the community. This is a great opportunity. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Sir?
Swear the testimony that I give the truth.
Yes.
What's your name? What your last name?
Phil Brilliant, B-R-I-L-L-I-A-N-T. Good evening. I'm gonna take this off. Take this one work?
They all work. Get one anyway. Turn it on.
Good, okay, here we go. So first I do have a couple questions, and anybody who wants to answer them can chime in. There's a lot of talk about stormwater. What's existing today versus what is proposed is an improvement, correct?
Correct.
Controlling stormwater, being able to manage stormwater versus a flat parking lot which has no control of stormwater. Is this a major improvement for Toms River?
Yes, it is.
Talked about elevation changes. We talked a lot about, I heard about road work. If this project was not occurring, the road work between the township and the county with the state funding is happening anyway.
That's correct.
Okay? So one has really nothing to do with the other, except for the fact that two of them together improves the downtown elevations, the management of stormwater, and hopefully the reduction of flooding long term.
I would agree, yes.
I don't remember. What was the year that the redevelopment plan was approved?
2017.
2017. Thanks. How many other apartment buildings have been built in downtown Toms River since 2017? I'll take that as a 0. So as far as what the buildings look like, comparison to what's existing, your proposal is a world different than where we are today. It is the center of the redevelopment of downtown Toms River. I mean, I guess you don't have to comment on that. CAFRA, you know, so I'm an environmental consultant by day. I'm not quite sure what I do at night, but you know, CAFRA encompasses flood hazard rules, which in the middle of your application, the flood hazard rules change in New Jersey. I don't think there's any state in the country more stringent than what New Jersey is currently doing. It talks about contamination on sites. It talks about stormwater. Is there anything that the DEP wouldn't have looked at relative to your project and looked at it with the most stringent eyes, looked at it with comparison to other projects throughout New Jersey that are waterfront, that, you know, had you been elsewhere, outside New Jersey, you probably could have done a lot less?
DEP reviewed it in accordance with their current regulations, and we have to abide by what they did. We put, you know, statement on the record and testimony that we went through a lengthy process and review with them, and that's what you get.
CAFRA permits are not easy to come by.
It takes time, and you comply with what you need to.
And then, how many years has the redevelopment plan and this plan itself been available on the township's website for review for everybody?
Excuse me, sir.
Yep.
I hate to interrupt you, but if you're gonna be asking the professionals questions, have them come up to the microphone.
I'm sorry.
So that the lady doing the reporting and report.
I'm sorry. Did you get everything? Okay. So my question was, and anybody can answer it, you know, how long has it been on the township's website and available for review?
7 years. 7 years.
7 years. So it's been available for people to review. Is there any other proposal in Ocean County like this proposal? Any of the experts know?
Not that I'm aware of, and very frankly, as was noted, this Capodaglia is the only developer to respond to the RFQ that was submitted by the town for any developer who may be interested in developing downtown. They were the only one to respond, despite giving it to Pulte Homes, Native Industries, and all of the larger developers. They wanted nothing to do with downtown Toms River. Capodaglia decided to invest in it.
So a couple comments. So first of all, I am not originally from Toms River. You know, thank God, okay, that's a comment behind me. But I grew up in a township, and the one thing I knew about when I graduated high school was I grew up in Franklin Township, Somerset County, that I never wanted to go back there. I saw better things outside of Franklin Township, Somerset County, and the one thing that amazes me here in Toms River, and I could probably ask the question, and we've already heard tonight, people stay in Toms River. People go to college, they go to law school, they come back to raise families here in Toms River. Why is that? Because it's a great place to live. It is a great place to raise a family, it's a great place to have a small business, it's a great place to have opportunity. Where else would where else can you be in New Jersey? You have the ocean, you have the Barnegat Bay, and we have the Toms River. I'm very happy I moved here in 1993. I had the, I say, fortunate opportunity when I got divorced in 2003 to live on the waterfront in downtown Toms River and to be able to walk around downtown. But there was nothing like there is today with the redevelopment, with the opportunity. And what this building brings to the downtown area is the opportunity to bring more people downtown. You know, someone mentioned it before that we really don't have a lot of apartment opportunities in Toms River. We have the hospital, you know, community medical center, where RWJ Barnabas is putting in millions of dollars for our community. We've already talked about Capodaglia putting in $5 million approximately for our community. We have a VA hospital going in up the road. The government putting money into our community. This building will have the opportunity to have the people who are working in these buildings, the additional staff required in these hospitals, to stay in our community. Now again, we're not saying that a doctor's gonna go rent an apartment in this structure, okay? But you know what? Maybe they need to take overnights. Maybe they need an opportunity to have an apartment. We have 127 resident students at Community Medical Center now. And every year, they will rotate in and they'll rotate out. There's no housing for them here in Toms River. Many of them are living in Lakewood. Many of them do not drive. They're from around the world coming into our community. And they're walking down Route 9 or waiting for a bus somewhere. Here's an opportunity to put them down the street from the hospital they work in. And more importantly, shopping and eating in the community that they work in. It's a win-win situation. I think I have one more note. No, I'm gonna stop there. That was all I said. I think there's no reason to wait. I think this is a win-win project for our community. It's a win-win project for all of us as a resident. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, sir. Any final comments? Ma'am?
Just Kathy, right?
You're still under it.
I just wanna say this quick, I know everybody's tired, it's everybody rubbing their eyes and yawning. Yes, there can be a project. It doesn't have to be 6 stories, it could be 3 stories, it could be 2 stories, it could be nothing. Okay, nothing's guaranteed to be the same. This World Trade Center buildings were the same. Look what happened, okay? We're not expecting any plane to run through them or be negative. But when you say a developer is going to give $5 million back to the township, you must be making a lot of money, okay? Because you wouldn't be giving no $5 million right now under this economy under President Biden. So I just want to say that for the record. And again, everybody in this room has their opinion. People think it's a great thing, that is. But I'm just asking this board to take into consideration and to think this matter over, because you will have the blood on your hands for the resident of Toms River. I'm sorry, sir, you might not agree with it, but that is a terrible situation that you're putting the residents on. And as Mr. Boyd said, that about people stay in this town, I don't know in his neighborhood, but my neighborhood is all flying, and people are just waiting for their kids to finish high school to get out. And the people that can get out are getting out. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Mutter?
Very great.
Yeah, me too.
We're all tired. Okay, Mark Water for the record, there is a compelling reason to continue this. 2 years ago, when the board originally approved of the 10 stories, it was a 9-0 vote. We had a full board. Tonight, there's only 6 of you here. Does not the township deserve a full complement of the planning board? Should you not continue this and have the regular members and the alternate who are not here tonight participate in the final decision? This is a decision that I think, if we're for or against, we all, I think, probably agree that will have a tremendous impact on the future of our town. Does not our town deserve a full complement of this board to deliberate and vote? And if that's the case, we should continue this.
Thank you, Mr. Mutter. Any other comments?
Seeing no further comments from the public, motion to close this portion.
I have a motion and a second. Second by Ann. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Shea, closing comments?
Yes, so I briefly, again, as Mr. McLean had indicated, this is a far cry from the first meeting that this board has heard this particular application. We started with venturing into this application, also loudly discussing this matter in the township almost 4.5 years ago. The indication that somehow, some way, the township residents didn't know about the project is really disingenuous. We had probably close to 4 to 5 meetings with the council alone, where members of the public were invited to discuss the project. In addition to that, we had several meetings with the planning, which there were discussions regarding this particular application. So over the course of the last 4 years, there have been multiple discussions. That's important. The board's members have been involved in a number of these matters and discussions, as well as attending the various council meetings. And the interesting part about this whole situation, the planning board always is placed in a position of having to enforce ordinances in town. And it's a tough position to be in, but it's the law. And the law has to be, is a certain thing that has to be followed in these particular instances. The board is obligated to follow municipal land use law. Municipal land use law requires an application to be heard, and it requires an applicant to comport with the requirements of the ordinance. In this particular instance, Capodaglia, the developer, has in fact not only comported with it, as de minimis variances that are being requested that have been previously been approved by the board in the application, in the prior application. So it is very, very clear that the board, the full membership of the 9 members of the board, has previously approved a much higher, let's call that, development, in addition to the variances that were associated with that development. So the board's duty, I'm certainly not indicating that the board does board members on notice, but just to remind certainly the board as well as the members of the public, the board has an obligation not to look at elections, not to look at anything other than what the municipal land use law provides, as well as the ordinances of the township. In this particular instance, not only the ordinances were crafted by the professionals and representatives of the township, but the township council endorsed a redevelopment plan some 7 years ago, close to 7 years ago. Everybody worked on this. Well before Capodaglia came into the scene. And people know my relationship to the town and my involvement with many organizations over the course of years. I was chairman of the Toms River Chamber of Commerce for many, many years. And for probably during that period of time, some 30, 35 years ago, we attempted to redevelop downtown. And the reason that the redevelopment didn't happen, very frankly, is because the economics. People didn't want to come down. People didn't want to invest in downtown. And over the course of those years, over the course of the last 10 years, with the establishment of BID, with certain businesses coming into the area, downtown is starting to revitalize. We're starting to get that feel. If anybody hasn't seen what's happening, they should attend the various events that the BID endorses over the course of the years. A harvest festival, all the different events, the wonderful events that 7,000 to 10,000 people show up for these events. Now, what do you think is going to happen when the development over a site that currently is a parking lot that we all know has been in existence for some 40 to 50 years, laying vacant and grass over for many, many years? If it was not for some of the prior administration moves, there still would be a hotel at that point. That was a disgrace to the township. It was only as a result of the movement, members of the businesses that were involved, the township committee in charge at that particular point in time, the professionals, the police department, the fire department, that really had the vigor to get rid of that hotel, which now opened up an entire area to be redeveloped. And that was the basis of the concept of the redevelopment plan. Capodaglia didn't come up with the redevelopment plan. They're perhaps the individuals who are going to attempt to indoctrinate that particular. But the fact of the matter is, they didn't produce this plan. The township council produced this plan. The township council, with their professionals, produced this plan. And it's a good plan. Because the alternative is to take a look at what is on Water Street. We all go past Water Street on a regular basis. It's horrible. It's a horrible section. The post office has been there for how many years? It's a disgrace. You can't even get into the place. It should move. It should go into another section of town, provide additional space that hopefully that area will be redeveloped. But the fact of the matter is that we have an opportunity. The opportunity is with the current development. Because I have to tell you, I do a lot of work all throughout the state of New Jersey. And the township now, and the township residents and the businesses down here have an opportunity to take this development and hopefully it won't be the last. Now, people may not want to hear that, but the fact of the matter is two visions. One vision is to stay stagnant for the next 30 years, and that's what's happened in the past 30 years, or to move forward with projects that are consistent with the plan. Because again, what we've done here is to be consistent with the ordinances developed by the town. No different than developing a parcel of property on Route 37, or Avenue. We've all seen in the Veterans Hospital that our office had represented. We're proud that we're involved in that. There are a few minor variances in design orders, but look at the benefit that's bestowed upon the township. It's large, it's big, it's perhaps a little bit different than normally is approved in a town, but that's how towns grow. I mean, the attitude that I've heard here tonight is really it's disenchantment, right? Because I've been a resident here since 1968. I've seen growth. I've seen situations where we had 22,000 people in the town down here. Now we have 20,000 kids in the school system. So growth is good. My grandchildren are here, my children are here, my two sons work at our office. I want to see them stay here. I want to have people have the opportunity to have housing that they can afford. As Mr. Brilliant indicated, and I think we had the representative of the hospital here last time around, there is a need. The individuals who the residents and nurses at Community Memorial Hospital have nowhere to stay in downtown Toms River. We had handled the application over at Legion Court for 56 units. I thought it was going to be burned at the cross when that first came to the board. There's 150 people on a waiting list to get into that particular apartment at this point in time. That houses some affordable housing that are units as well. So again, progress is good. That was a step in the right direction. We now have 56 apartments, 56 individuals and families that go downtown to shop, to go to Capone's Pizza, a slice of pizza, perhaps a coffee. That's the way downtown is developing. And with this particular project, I think this is a classic example of the township moving forward with the plan that was established by the town, and having a developer that's committed to coming in here, not the first project that they've done, but 6,000 apartments in the making that they've already did this type of project in other towns. And some of the board members had the opportunity of going to see these particular projects in different areas of the state. And everyone came back, including members of the council came back and said that it's a class project, class organization, they'll do a good job. Otherwise, they wouldn't have gotten as far as they have. They wouldn't have obtained an amendment to a redevelopment plan that was just signed in July of this year. They could have just moved forward with the old project. They could have done that, but they heard exactly what the young lady had indicated. Many of the individuals who were concerned about this project were in the Messages Street area. They lived locally. They were concerned about that. When our clients had the opportunity of trying to address this issue, they took it upon themselves. They didn't have to do this. They took it upon themselves to do it. They lowered it by almost 40 feet, but stayed within the confines of the ordinances that were developed by the town. So I think that my client has really done everything possible to try to stay within the confines of the law. And I realize that there's been talk about elections and terrible things happening in Toms River. Well, I'm more optimistic than that. I think there's a lot of good things that are going to be happening in Toms River. I think that the fact of the matter is this Toms River area is still a wonderful place to live. Otherwise, very frankly, developers wouldn't be coming in here spending $70 million for a project of this type if they didn't believe that they were going to be able to rent it. And the projection to rent this apartment complex is within 15 months. That's what their projections are. They have a 97% rental rate right now throughout the state of New Jersey. Do you think that there's a distinct possibility that they would not invest this type of money and not think they're going to be successful? So hopefully this project comes in, this project is built, and it'll be the linchpin for other developers, other retailers, if need be, to come in here and spend some money. Maybe develop Main Street, develop other areas out by Water Street once that roadway is improved. But this is the opportunity to make that happen. I have to tell you, if this doesn't happen, then all of us are going to be looking at a parking lot over there for the next 40 years because no one will touch downtown. And no matter what Mr. Mutter says or anybody else from the public, my office is about a couple of 100 feet away from this building. I go past downtown every night. And I have to tell you something, there is little if any activity down by Honey Park or those areas other than during the summer months. If you go down to the parking lot where this is the subject of the application, I would not want to have my children go down to the parking lot at night in that area. It's dangerous. There are certain elements in that area that will be cleaned up as a result of this type of project going in. Hopefully others to follow. So there's going to be a distinct amount of benefits bestowed upon the township and bestowed upon the residents of this area by having a project like this built. And hopefully the board recognizes that the developer has done everything possible to try to achieve those goals, comport with the ordinance, and try to attempt to do the right thing on their end for the township, aside from the fact that there's going to be a $5.5 million public investment that is really outside the scope of that building as part of this project that's going to be enjoyed by every resident in this town who wants to come down here and who has the ability of going over and enjoying another restaurant or joining a gym. So it's an opportunity that doesn't come along very often for a downtown of our time. And I would respectfully request that the board approve the application.
Thank you, sir. We'll entertain a motion from the board.
I'd like to make a motion, but I'd like to make a comment before.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Shea, I remember when you were an excellent quarterback on River North. Now I have a grandson who's on top of River North football team. There's a coach sitting in the audience that coached my sons in football. I've been here a long time. You took a lot of my thunder away, a lot of speeches I wanted to say. We know about the past. I knew when the Chamber of Commerce wanted to shut this town down. When they destroyed Main Street years and years ago. Thank God we have new people running our Chamber of Commerce. When they cheered everybody to go to Ocean County Mall. Remember that? And they basically in 1 year shut Main Street down and killed it. Now we're revitalizing it again. And Mr. Mutter, you were mayor, so was I, and I helped to get you to be mayor. We have different opinions on expanding this town. You're still a dear friend of mine, you always will be, even though we have opposite sides. I want to thank you people. We have one side pro, one side con. They were all excellent remarks by you people. The trouble is with this township here and the planning board. Everybody wants to complain, but nobody wants to come to the meetings and air their grievances out. I want to thank both of you, whether it's good or bad, whether you want it. But I am going to approve this development.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I have a motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Emma Pasquale. Roll call. Any comments?
Mr. Wade?
Yes.
Ms. Harold Pasquale?
I would also like to thank everyone for coming out. Your opinions are important and valuable, and I applaud you for coming out and speaking up. It's good to see you, and I hope everyone will come in future events and meetings, and we can hear more from our great residents. This project is an improvement. There is a reduction in the height from 10 to 6 stories. I would like to see a little more architecture here in downtown if possible. I'll just leave that out there as a comment. I reviewed the Township Bureau of Fire Prevention. The applicant indicated he will comply with that, and I'm satisfied that that would address my concerns regarding safety. There are minimal variances. This project is consistent with the master plan. The project will create opportunity for our residents. There are improvements in the amenities. The waterfront and bulkhead will be improved. An amphitheater, a boardwalk, additional retail for our residents. Based upon the expert testimony that we've heard tonight, and considering everyone's comments and questions, which are very valuable, I vote yes to the proposed project. Thank you.
Ms. Evastakis?
I'd also like to say that one of the things that really resonated with me was the price of the units. Right now, in this area, most rentals are going for about $3,000 a month, and you can't get them. So any project that's going to come in and build that type of, provide that type of ability to live here, work here, have, recreation here, everything, is something that really should be welcomed. I realize that this is very new for us to have this type of large, project downtown, but I also live downtown. And I'm tired of looking at that ugly parking lot, because that's all it is. It's just, and no, you don't wanna go down there after dark, because it's not a good area. So, I agree with pretty much every word that Mr. Shea said, and I vote yes.
Mr. DiGregorio.
So I've lived in Toms River my entire life, born and raised here. My mother, born and raised here. Roots go very deep. I enjoy going downtown. I think it's a wonderful thing. Brewery, the distillery. Try to go to all those great events that people go to. And the sad thing is, if you go to some of our businesses on a day that there's no event, there's barely anybody here. I sit out at the window at the brewery looking out on Main Street, and I just see the potential that could happen here. People my age, a lot of people I know, they go to Asbury Park, they go to Red Bank, they go to other places in the state. There's no reason why downtown Toms River can't be a destination for people around the county, around the state to say, that's something to invest our money in, let's go and patronize those businesses. There's a lot of positives here tonight. The reduction in the height, the reduction in the units, an increase in a majority of the units being single and studio units, a maintenance in the number of parking spaces, an investment of $5 million in the public right-of-way, that promenade, the waterfront. Separate from this application, we heard about the build grant that was given to Toms River in 2017. And we were the only municipality in the state of New Jersey to get any grant money out of that build program. That is going to fix a lot of the problems that we've had in this township, separate from this application. I think the numbers were, with that project from the build program, even if there was a full build out of the redevelopment area, traffic conditions in 20 years would be better than what they are today, based on the improvements and the investments that are going to take place there. I think this is overall a positive for the township, and in speaking with its compliance with the redevelopment plan, I think it does hit many of those guidelines, and I vote yes.
Mr. Rowe.
First of all, I wasn't born in Toms River. I came down here about 20 years ago, and my wife said we're going down to Toms River. Unfortunately, she passed away, but I'm still in Toms River. I got to tell you one thing. I disagree with the gentleman talking about the fire departments. The volunteer fire departments are measured by the time they respond to fire. We just had a fire in Greenbrier Woodlands. We lost a house. The fire department was there in 10, 15 minutes. So I have to disagree with you about fire departments. Secondly, I've been sitting here for an hour, couple of hours when I listened to pros and cons. And I lost to listen to that lady that is on the redevelopment program in Toms River area. And then in this sense, I have to vote yes.
Mr. Heinsman.
This project is key to the economic revitalization of downtown Toms River, no doubt. And for some of our residents that may be in the audience that don't understand how this board works, we're an independent board in the governing body. So to take umbrage with the political tone that was taken towards the board, and I was here in 2021, but the project, whether folks agreed with it or disagreed with it, I will tell you, it wasn't approved on a rainy night in the middle of the night without careful consideration. So I take umbrage with that. Again, this is key to the economic revitalization of downtown Toms River. I look forward to seeing what you bring to downtown. Thank you, and I vote yes.
6 votes to approve.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Before we close, I do have to open up one last time, public comment on any other topic.
Seeing no comment from the public, motion to close that portion.
Second, motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Second by Ian, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed,